Hello, everybody. It's we're back for more. We're not leaving. We're here again. It's the Nen Show Podcast, Wano, Act 2. Woo! Hello, Mathwiz. Say hi, Mathwiz.
Can I get a do-over? No do-over? Okay.
No, time only marches forward. We went over this last time.
Shit. Okay.
So yeah, I guess, as of this recording, Act 1 of Wano hasn't even been uploaded, so, I was gonna ask, how do you feel about Act 2? How are you feeling about Wano?
I definitely think this one, the act of reading this one was definitely, maybe it was part of the material. I think also partially because, now I'm back in the swing of, we're reading One Piece. We're, doing the podcast, and it's it was good reading. I enjoyed this one.
I literally started it, the day after we recorded the last reading, because I was all excited, and I'm like, I'll just read a little bit of One Piece, and it kept being one more chapter. I'll just read one more chapter. And then I was like, shit, I literally finished it a few days ago, and we only recorded it a week ago, so yeah. But I'm really liking the reread of Wano. It's very good. And
there was definitely a stretch of chapters where it became a lot easier to read it, and I was just very, very hooked on it. So, because you know me, I read slow. I do my best, but
no, I understand. Yeah, no, we're all good. We're here ready to record. So, starting off with the reading, we're getting Mr. Mihawk and Ms. Perona having good interactions as usual, where they're just, I don't know, Perona being kind of an entitled, spoiled brat, but also thankful, and Mihawk's a little harsh, but he's also be careful out there, and do you want to do anything quietly? They're just fun.
Yeah, I like the line where it's do you know how many meals I cooked for you? And Mihawk's just not as many as I did. It's a surprisingly not a duo of characters that I back when they first were shown together. It's oh, interesting, but they're good.
Yeah, she's just Kuma sent me here, I guess this is my life now. And then she was there for over 2 years, for the most part. That's the thing. She came back after, because she dropped off Zoro at Sabaody, and then she where the fuck else is she gonna go? Okay, now she didn't know Mora was alive, so now she has somewhere to go. So she's gonna reunite with, her old captain, hopefully. Which segues right into the next scene, which, as a Blackbeard enjoyer, you could expect that I had a little bit of a reaction. But what did you think about this little sequence? Because I know you might have gotten slightly spoiled on it a while, ages ago, if you even remember.
Oh, yeah, I feel the one panel of, I don't remember his name, but showing off, the invisible fruit and how he was kind of, just the way it was drawn.
Yeah, that was because, the way that Oda drew his invisibility, he mentioned that was he got that from Kishimoto because he really liked how he portrayed invisibility in his story, and so when he drew Absalom way back in Thriller Bark, he drew from that. Except whenever the person who shared that showed it, they didn't use Absalom, they used Shiryu. They used the spoilery character because it's so because obviously okay, how did Shiryu get the fruit? Absalom's probably fucking dead. So, that's why I remember when you brought that up, I was like, oh shit, she just got kind of spoiled on a little bit from, the One Piece that she hasn't read yet.
Well, it's okay. We took years and I forgot, so.
There we go. That's how you deal with spoilers. You just fucking ignore it for 3 years and then come back to it, and you weren't even spoiled. But yeah, we got Moria charging down fucking Blackbeard trying to get his comrade back. Unfortunately, Absalom is fucking dead. And yeah, Shiryu has his fruit now. We also see Katarina Devon has a fruit of her own. She's got a nine-tailed fox thing going on. And a couple of things I want to observe is that, one, with Katarina Devon, I just noticed that she's got a lot of girls, shrieking. And as Absalom, she was surrounded by girls. There is no way this woman is straight. I'm just saying. And then the other thing is about Moria, because this chapter, like, I've always liked Moria, because I just think, like, I just really like how his characterization works in Thriller Bark.
Yeah.
But, like, this chapter also endeared him to me even more, because it's like, because we know he cares about his comrades to the point that he went for the zombies so he wouldn't have to care, because, he was afraid of making new bonds and stuff. But here he is, like, literally charging into the territory of one of the 4 emperors for his comrade, and that's maybe like click. It just made me click with him even more, because like how many characters do we see do that? Like Luffy, like it's a pretty rare trait, like, and as not being an emperor himself, and that's just like made me go like, yeah, fuck yeah, Moria, like, and then I felt bad for him, because his comrade, like, one of 3 human beings that he had on his crew, Hogback, Absalom, and Perona, like, well, he now lost one of them, and kind of sad. So
yeah, it's a good point. I didn't really think of it that way, of just like, maybe it's just because my memories of Thriller Bark aren't as fresh in my mind, but yeah, that is, I guess, interesting for his character, that he would just, fuck it, I'm gonna take on Blackbeard.
Yeah, no, Moria's good. But then we get to see for the first time, I'm pretty sure, Blackbeard post time skip, looking more piratey than any other character in the manga, in the pirate manga even. And yeah, he's just super pumped for, like, he's like, hey, Moria, join me. He doesn't give a fuck, and then he's also just, he knows, he recognizes the signs of, the era is changing and we're entering the battle for the throne, and hype way to get into Act 2, where, of course, the young ones are going up against Kaido, so, little, small, in-between act stuff, but, yeah. So anyway, getting back to Wano, we get, Ashura Doji, who I think he was named last reading, but I wasn't sure, so I just just called him Shutenmaru, just to avoid, like, spoiling, potentially, that,
yeah, it was definitely right at the end of the reading.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Because I knew once I saw him, but I was like, wait, is that mentioned this reading? And then I kind of forgot if it was or not, so I'll just only call him by the name that isn't a spoiler, potentially, so, but, he's, they want to recruit him, but he is not happy, considering, he wasn't pushed ahead 20 years. Otam is safe, thank God. And then we also get introduced to King and Queen, the other of Kaido's lead performers. Crazy designs, as always. Oh, and then, okay, so this is from the SBS, but I wanted to mention, because I just like this continued gag that we get through the SBS of people asking for, like, anthropomorphizations of, like, weapons and stuff. And, I don't know, it's just, like, like he just draws Zoro's swords, and they're just, like, weird-looking dudes. And he's like, this has been a smashing success, like, the overconfidence he has about these silly guys. I don't know, something about it's funny to me. And the ways that it gets added to later. But I don't remember if it was this reading. I just wanted to point it out because I just find it really funny. Anyway, we see the characters mobilizing, getting the message out about the Kozuki return, the raid. Oh yeah, we see what the Whole Cake crew is kind of doing on the island now. Nami's doing ninja stuff, and with Shinobu, who is a terrible ninja. Oh, and then we get a good Sanji moment where he's... Oh, no, that's later. Never mind. He's just serving Udon at this point. I was thinking of later.
I do find it funny, like, with some of the gags with, like, Shinobu, but just kind of, like, how sometimes Oda will introduce these characters where it's like, oh, okay, they're clearly like this, but they're doing everything wrong, but they can kind of play it off as, like, no, I'm doing ninja stuff, and it's like, you're just doing mundane things, but sure. It just like it kind of just works anyway, and the characters are just like, what?
Yeah, I do like the running gag of, like, the characters. Yeah, we'll just do things and say, like, I mean, and you've had this even before with, like, fruit powers and saying it's ninja arts or whatever, or because they don't necessarily understand the devil fruits and what they are, but just like they'll just do things and say it's ninjutsu, and it's like, well, I'm not gonna argue with an actual ninja. I don't know, it's silly. Anyway, then we get to see Udon Prison, where Luffy and Kid cannot help but to, butt heads and be rivals even in prison. I really like how, they eat a bunch of the food that they get as a reward for doing the work. And, Luffy gets fat, normal. Happens every day. Kid gets fat, somehow makes it, a 5 times funnier.
Yeah, that they're both. Yeah, that it's just not necessarily the worst generation thing, but just they are both of such strong will and I don't know, just similar mindsets in a way, I guess. And I did also like the gag where they eat all the food, and then the other people are like, "What are you doing? How'd you get all this food?" And then they're just like, "Hold on, wait, I gotta digest this," and then they just shrink. I think that's one thing that I love in One Piece is how I guess just the broken yet consistent logic of these just superhuman people being able to just do a bunch of exaggerated bullshit things that no real person could do, no normal person, but they the same thing last reading where Luffy's oh, you can eat poison when you're an adult, and it's no, you're just a freak of nature.
They're fucking monsters,
and they're great, and it's never not funny.
Yeah, and I think also for Kid, it's we haven't really seen him in any sort of humorous context before this. I don't think we saw him on Sabaody, and he had his presence, and I don't know, he got flipped off by Law, I guess. And, other than that, he's been overall a fairly serious character. So seeing him just being, so mad at Luffy and refusing to be outdone by his rival in any capacity that he is also just going to, just get round and puff up and then, just digest. And I don't know, they're kind of similar even though they are, they're rivals. So it's great. And, of course, the way they're, sort of finding ways to get around the rules of the prison, they beat up the hippo guy, but inside his mouth, his smile fruit mouth, and, Luffy's just, whistling, and where's your proof that we did it, huh? They just, they're so cool. God. But yeah, so now we get to the Soba scene that I was thinking of, where, bunch of fuckfaces come by, part of the Kyoshiro's Yakuza.
One thing I noticed with this moment is I think I've just kind of come full circle with Sanji, where it's he still kind of has his moments, but whenever Sanji does a Sanji, it's in this thing where the food gets spilled and then it's just oh no, you fucked up, Sanji's gonna beat the shit out of you. And it's go Sanji, go.
Well, especially after last chapter where there's just a huge wealth disparity and, where, they're in the part of town that does get the food. And then, we just saw Luffy and Zoro getting really mad for the people who don't have the food. And so it's just Sanji also knows hunger, and there it is, this old trait coming back and, in just a really good way. And he's just, gets pissed off and, forcing it down his throat is,
yeah, you're gonna eat this. It's so good.
Yeah, it's great. Then we get introduced to Toco, who is another precious baby who should be protected. They just are immediately endeared to her, being a little goofball. And she is funny and cute and good. Then we get a little name drop of Komurasaki, the top courtesan of Wano. Robin, of course, sort of being a junior as she's trying to get closer to Orochi. Oh yeah, so back to the prison. I remember being surprised somehow when Caribou showed up again, because I forgot that at the end of his cover story he got captured by Drake, who we joined Kaido's crew, of course.
Yeah.
So just I don't know, because obviously he was there in the previous chapter for one panel, but just because I don't know, he's just this minor ass fucking character who's just keeps coming back even though he's a scrub, and he's such a piece of shit. But
yeah, I didn't remember where we had last seen Caribou, so like seeing him pop up here, and it wasn't just like, you know, it's Oda doing his thing that he does with a lot of these characters, where it's like, no, they're gonna have an important role in some way, even if it's a minor one.
Right, and and I also like that Caribou's just like, you know, he's still a piece of shit, but like there's a scene later where he's like, I've changed, Luffy, honest, and Luffy's like, huh, okay, I guess, and Caribou's like, that was too easy. He must be trying to trick me. He knows I'm still a piece of shit. Like Luffy's so honest. He casts likes the people who are shitty doubt. You know, if they shitty like what they're doing. Like, I don't know. It's a good little interaction. Oh, we also find out that Kid lost his arm from red-haired Shanks, which is kind of funny considering Shanks is also missing an arm, like the same arm even. So. I'm kind of curious as to like what specific if there's any more specifics as to what happened there, I guess, because, you know, we normally, I don't know, I feel like we haven't known Shanks to do a lot of harm, but like we also know that he can be, you know, he is an emperor, he is one of the, you know, top pirate dogs, and you know, Kid tried to fuck with him, so Shanks fucked back, and yeah, didn't work out for Kids. So oh, and then we get Komurasaki's introduction with the Bingo, I think, the old guy, and the other two, where it's like she basically took all the money that he had and tricked him, basically, and he got angry and tried to attack her.
Yeah, it's so interesting how, like, Oda can, like, I guess frame the characters in, like, you know, like dish out information in such a way that, you know, paints a very particular picture of like, you know, like with this scene, it's like, oh, you know, Komurasaki is clearly like, you know, she took advantage of these people, and she is kind of like, you know, even with some of her like poses and whatnot, she looks like, or some of the way that she's framed in the panel, she looks kind of like sinister. But then like later on, you get the other half of the story basically, and then it's like, oh, well, wait a minute, you know, there's more going on here than just how it's how it is initially like perceived or portrayed, and how there's just like a lot of that with characters here. And I mean, I guess it's something Oda's always kind of done, but just like a lot of characters like that where you know, seemingly unimportant or seemingly like goofy and comedic, and it turns out that they have like really big, you know, serious roles and influence on people. And I don't know, it's just it's interesting to you know, because like it feels like there can always be something more with any of these characters that, like, you know,
right, yeah,
their introduction can easily like paint them in a completely different, you know, almost like misinformed light.
Yeah, no, and like you know, kind of mention it, but it does kind of recur throughout Wano. Like, I think especially this reading the character who we see that with his Yasu, you know, Tono Yasu or Yasuie, where it's like, you know, oh, he's a silly old man, but then it's like, no, he's got some, he's kind of goofy comic character, but then we find out who he really is, and, you know, he gets his final scene, and it, you know, contextualizes him a whole lot more, just like we get more contextualization for, you know, Komurasaki later on, and even, the Bingo and Bungo and Bongo or whatever the fuck they're called. And I just was even thinking about how, like, information control, it's both something that Oda utilizes for his storytelling, but, you know, like we were also talking about it last time, how Kaido is, like, you know, he's indoctrinating the youths of Wano, or rather Orochi as well, that to, you know, believe a certain way of their history that's untrue. And that even goes back to, like, what the world government is doing by hiding the Void Century. You know, there's just a regular usage of information control in the manga, and while it's also, like, knowledge, and it is an important, you know, point of conflict within the manga itself. So, you know, it is interesting. And of course, like, looking back, I definitely think, like, like you said, the way Komurasaki's framed is definitely sort of, like, putting, you know, making it look sinister. Like just comparing her expressions while walking with a procession to, like, some of the later ones we see from her. You know, she just doesn't look like, I don't know, I don't see any warmth in this person, if that makes sense, in this chapter. Where later she is very, you know, we know who she is and what her deal is, and it's you know, very different. But But also, I will point out, like, there's the fact, because I remember noticing it back when I was discussing the chapters as they were coming out, but, because it definitely makes her feel sort of villainous, but then there's also, like, it's just, like, a line of dialogue that mentions that the fucking old guy sold his family to get money for her, and it's like, hold up. That's a little fucked up. Like, like, they're simping, but, like, simping so hard you sell your entire family? Like, that's, like, this is a person of power within his family, and he's, using that power to try and, in his mind, help Komurasaki. So it's definitely, like, there's a little, like, as we see later, like, he's not actually a good person. But I just noticed that little bit of sort of, something's wrong, kind of. So, it's just a good little point to have for later when we learn more about her. And I was also wondering, did you ever guess, because, like, I just noticed that literally right after we get introduced to Komurasaki, we see Tama and Momo talking, and Momo's like, my sisters should be alive and here somewhere. I don't know where she is.
Yeah, that was definitely my initial thought, that it's like, to put them so back-to-back like that, I'm like,
Yeah. Then there's a little bit I liked where Franky... He was trying to find the map of the layout plans for the mansion, and I don't know, the way that he just has to go around a bunch, it's like, it's a fucking Zelda fucking trade quest where he has to, or he's following one rather, and it's just like, it's gone down this long path.
Yeah, it's like, go to this person, go to this person, go to this person. Okay, it's a dead end.
This is some fucking adventure game RPG bullshit, and he's not, and it doesn't go anywhere. He's like, well, what the fuck? It's gone. So it's like, well, that was a complete waste of my fucking time. Poor Franky.
I also really liked the one panel where, like, he's fighting with the carpenter guy, and he gets hit in the back of the head with, like, a log or something, and, like, his eyes and his teeth pop out of his head.
Yep. It's very funny. And of course, just also the exchange of, you're fired, I'm not fired, I quit. Like, okay. Anyway, then we go back to Zoro, and he's getting introduced to Tonoyasu, silly old man. And then of course, so, like, we know that Wano's whole thing is it's closed borders. Like, but he's literally talking about the borders being closed with fucking Orochi's in dealings with the goddamn world government, Cypherpole Zero, like, just the corruption just never stops. Well, it's also interesting because, like, so there was an exchange back at the Reverie that I don't think I mentioned that I thought was interesting, but because there were some of the kings talking about Wano, and one of them mentioned that, like, Wano, there's no government presence there. It's basically a lawless land, right? Like, because for that character, the government is all he knows. The government is peace and order and stability. So in his mind, Wano not having the government means they must be this fucking wasteland, this fucking crazy hellhole where it's just crime. But it's like, no, we see Wano. It's not great right now, but that's because of Kaido. But, it's just a normal ass fucking place. Like, they have law, they have civilization and order of their own, right? And just, like, the way that, like, this king was ignorant about Wano, where, of fucking course, the government has back dealings with Orochi, is just, like, I don't know. The government be like that. The fucking world government be like that, I guess.
I realize now that, like, there are still some bits and pieces that aren't, like, fresh in my mind, because, like, I honestly forgot that the guys that he was talking to were Cypherpole Zero.
Oh, right.
I'm just like, okay, I assume these people are important, but I didn't recognize the designs.
Yeah, that's fair. And because he is mentioning government things, like, I think he mentions that, he's interested in, he literally wants Dr. Vegapunk, and, he's also just not afraid of the Heavenly Dragons or the Marines, because, of course, he's got Kaido. Like, he has an emperor on his side. The government treads lightly around the emperors, and, so, anyway, then he goes out to his party with all his courtesans, and also just a little note about his design is because he's got a crown on his head, which is more of a Western symbol of imperial power, which I think is just a good little nod to the fact that he is one person in Wano who has connections to the outside world through Kaido and the world government. So I just thought it was a neat little design choice that fits that, if that makes sense. And also we get his line of don't be tricked into thinking Wano is like heaven. And then it immediately cuts away to fucking we see or it like pans out rather, and we see like the factories billowing up smoke, which is just kind of like, fucking Orochi, you're a piece of shit. Then Zoro arrives at Ebisu town, where everyone's smiles. Fuck. No, why did I say that word? No. Well, it's like that. I don't know, because at first it definitely seems, I don't know, it might evoke like if you remember back on with Robin's flashback, you had Saul telling Robin that when things are hard, try and laugh, and pain, emotional pain.
And this kind of being like a twisted version of that, where it's like not really a choice that they have, and
which we find that out later, but for now it's because like they are laughing, like even though they don't have a choice, they're not crying a lot necessarily. I mean, some of them do have tears in their eyes, but not all of them. So at least like through Tonoyasu they're able to have some like positivity, I guess, but like as we see later, it's also they don't have a choice.
I thought that was something really interesting about Tonoyasu, which, I mean, obviously it comes up later, but like, because like I think he was like the initial character to sort of like introduce what Ebisu town and like the Ebisu smile and stuff like that. So like, but then you kind of figure out later that he's kind of just adopting that. Like he's sort of like picking up that the mannerisms of like being happy and cheerful and stuff to kind of like, maybe just like ease people's like, burdens, that for the people who have no choice but to smile and laugh because of, the after effects that he kind of, rather than, like when you see Zoro and he's like, why is everyone smiling? This is terrible. And Tonoyasu kind of like, adopting those mannerisms to like not just like fit in, but also, like try to cheer everybody up and kind of be that, I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. I need to find another word.
It's fine. And I'll talk about it more later, but I definitely do like Tonoyasu quite a bit, as far as, the more minor Wano characters go. And also, in this exchange with Zoro, I don't know, like that last panel where, Yasu's talking about like, we don't let poverty get us down. I don't know, Zoro, like the character on the Straw Hats who's probably smiled the least, except for Brook, who can't smile because he doesn't have lips. But like Zoro, he's got a little hint of a smile there, and it's I don't know, it's nice. Just Zoro, he's a good boy. Anyway, then we have some big news from the front of Wano, where Big Mom's coming. Big Mom's here.
Oh yeah.
I remember when this chapter came out being like, fuck, like I knew it was coming, but also fuck. Because it's just like like Luffy needs more trouble. He's already dealing with one emperor. Nope, here comes another one we're very familiar with about how dangerous she is. And then like they literally just get knocked out by fucking like King just is like, nope, denied. You go back down, get down.
Yeah, I felt like it was a good, I guess, kind of like showcasing of abilities and powers that, like, aside from getting attacked at the very top, like where the Straw Hats had some issue getting into Wano, maybe it's also because like, Big Mom's crew would be a bit more familiar with it, that they just kind of shot straight up and, if they hadn't been attacked, would have had no trouble getting in without hassle. But then, yeah, like, a way to keep them at bay being to just like, what's the weakness? Water. Knock them into water. So it's like, defeated without being defeated, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Because, I forget if we see the rest of her crew during this reading again. But, obviously we get more of Big Mom. Which I'm very curious to hear what you think about that, because it's very silly. I'm
like, what was her memory loss a point of discourse?
Oh, you better fucking believe it. It was, because especially I don't think people like the trope in general, and I do understand why, but we'll talk about it. So
yeah, that's fair.
So anyway, Sanji, of course, pissed off people, so they get you have the Tobiroppo, who are some of Kaido's higher. They're in between the headliners like Hold'em, who's are actually kind of fucking weak mooks at the end of the day. They're just higher level weak mooks, and then they're still under the headliners. And so we get Page One and Drake, another one of the worst generation who we've known to have joined Kaido a while ago. I think I think that's right, because I think we saw Drake on before the time skip where he just went onto one of Kaido's islands and started picking a fight, and then during the Caribou cover story, I think that's when they mentioned that Drake had in fact joined Kaido's crew. Which I thought was mysterious, because here you have a former Marine leaving the Marines and now joining the crew of an Emperor. So what the fuck's going on with that? But anyway, so they're causing trouble. Sanji jumps in, and he of course there's the whole thing. Law is trying to they don't want Sanji as a Straw Hat to be an outsider to be known. So he can get away with fighting Page One for a bit because he doesn't recognize him, but necessarily.
I also thought that it was a bit odd that he's saying as long as they don't find out who I am, and then he proceeds to use the Germa mechanism, which is that I feel like is pretty obvious. Maybe that you're not Sanji immediately, but that you're someone connected to the Vin Smoke.
And especially there is the bounty poster, that now says Vin Smoke. But also, as we find out its abilities, he's stealth black, so it's very specifically
True, but he didn't know that when he first tried it.
That is true. Yes. And there's also a bit where it's he's because Sanji, especially his stubbornness was very important during Whole Cake Island, where he's just trying to do things his way and the way he wants to, even even if he's forced to do otherwise. So here he's actually kind of, as he mentions, he's giving up on a bit of that stubbornness, where it's he hates his fucking family, he hates Derma, but he's well, I'll to help people, I will get over that. I'll fucking get over myself and use their technology. And then so we get stealth black Sanji's Germa outfit, which alongside it we also get Law being a giant fucking comic book nerd, where he just knows everything about the Germa and the fucking stealth black, and he's just I think, what does he say? He's he's just, I'm a regular reader. I hated Germa, and he's me too, Sanji. Just Law being this exposition, but it's just in a funny way, because it's I don't know, something about Law being a comic book fan is very good. Usopp's you know way too much about this. And of course, there's also the irony of Sanji wanted invisibility powers, and now he has them by I don't know, he's getting what he wanted by using the technology of his family, which that he hates. So there's kind of a monkey's paw kind of there, I guess, where it's but at the end of the day, Page One just gets his ass beat, because I remember some people being mad about people don't like how One Piece skips fights, is how they say, because they want to see all the cool fights with the strong characters fighting. But I don't know, One Piece is already long enough as it is for me. And also in this case, the end of the last panel we see of the fight is Sanji drops down, and we literally hear Page One, he's screaming like a bitch as he's getting his ass handed to him. So I'm I don't know, did we really lose anything by not seeing more of Sanji just beat the hell out of this scrub? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel I'm not one to talk. I'm a Hunter x Hunter fan, so I'm used to the whole skipped fights thing and not having a problem with it.
Mm-hmm, right. So anyway, Robin's snooping around, and we see the Oniwaban. Okay, let me try and pronounce this correctly at least once. I'm just gonna call them the fucking ninjas after this, so I'm gonna pronounce it Oniwabanshu. Oniwabanshu. Okay, now I can probably pronounce it. Oniwabanshu. Yeah. I don't know. These guys have fucking their design. Oda's designs are always crazy, but Oda's ninjas, but One Piece, and it's look at these fucking weirdos. They're all look at them. Robin literally makes one bad move and then boom, surrounded. And then back on the beach that Luffy woke up on. Chopper,
yeah, I like how
Tom,
like no one else in this group recognizes Big Mom, but then Chopper's just like, oh shit.
Yeah, because he's tussling with her, and he's fucking like, oh no.
A lot of good Chopper faces in this section.
Good. Very good. And he's fucking freaking out, and Big Mom wakes up, and she's like, "Who am I?" And oh boy, what? God, there was a part during the reading where you messaged me and said, "This reading is insane," and I literally could not guess where you were. Like, were you just starting it? Were you in the middle? Were you towards the end? I don't fucking know, because this reading is constantly just hitting you with wild shit, especially after a certain point. And I'm just like, yeah, Mathwiz sure did. You sure are reading One Piece? Because I can't fucking tell you where you are. Because I feel like sometimes you've messaged me like once or twice during a reading, and I could guess where you were, but this time I was just like, yeah, it's all insane. Welcome to One Piece.
I also like in the one panel where like, you know, she's laid out on the beach and Chopper is like pulled out a sword and he's like, I'm gonna finish it, I gotta do it, and it's like, it's not happening.
He's a ninja, he's a little assassin, he's totally gonna take out, like, yeah, there was a whole fucking massive plot to assassinate Big Mom that he was a part of that didn't work out, and yeah, he's gonna be able to do it alone. He's so, I don't know, he's
yeah,
doing his best.
I feel like I remember Chopper being like towards the bottom of my Straw Hat rankings when we've, you know, wrapped up Whole Cake, and I feel like that is so dreadfully wrong nowadays. Like, I feel like I think it was mainly just because I liked other characters more, not that I disliked Chopper, but like, I was wrong. Chopper's great.
No, Chopper's definitely, like, I don't know, I feel like that's the thing about the Straw Hats is that, like, yeah, they don't all get big character stuff, you know, like, I don't know if anyone's gonna get anything of the level like Sanji got in Whole Cake Island, where just that level of exploration. I certainly hope so, because I love these characters and I want to see more of them, but even if they don't get stuff necessarily, like, one thing I was literally thinking about the other day was, like, how Nami, I think someone pointed out to me and I've just kept thinking about it, was, like, during Whole Cake Island, Nami's, like, she doesn't get a lot of big character stuff, but just, like, the way that her character is kind of like, especially like, she's always behind Luffy and has his back even if she doesn't like agree with what's going on, or like, so she's just able to be this like stable, level-headed person, and it is really good character stuff, even if it's not like stated loudly, like, you know, Sanji's character stuff is, right? Like, she's not getting these big character moments, but she is this like level-headed backbone of the crew that Luffy really needed. And you know, because, like, you know, so she was, you know, there with Luffy as much as possible, right? And, you know, just stuff like that is, you know, like, you know, and yeah, it's Chopper being this little goofball who's just adorable, and he's, you know, the baby of the crew, and you know, like, yeah, he gets character stuff for sure, like we've seen like on Punk Hazard and Thriller Bark, but you know, in Whole Cake Island he had like, yeah, it didn't have as much, but you know, Chopper's just, he's good. They're all good. They're fucking good characters.
Yeah, I think like a little moment that kind of stood out to me on kind of a similar reason was just like when like Tonoyasu kind of goes to see everyone before shit goes down. And it's kind of just like, you get a little panel of like Nami and Usopp are just kind of like having a conversation outside of the little like hut or whatever, or the little, I don't know what it's called. It's a building, something.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, no, I mean, it kind of goes without saying that, like, the dynamics between the Straw Hats are all really good. And it's just, like, you know, kind of just, like, seeing those two hanging out, it really just goes to show, like, how, like, you know, different members of the Straw Hats have different dynamics with each other. And it can be understated, but also can be, like, very pronounced, like, in the case of, like, Sanji and Zoro, where it's, like, they're always butting heads, but then, you know, there's always kind of something, you know, where they're, like, I don't know, it's just... They're such a good group of characters.
For sure. It's, yeah, they're like, it's, you know, One Piece. I love One Piece. I love these characters. I love this story. And, you know, there's just so many reasons as to why. And that, you know, yeah, the way the characters interact with each other is very much one of them.
And actually, now that I think about it, that's something I've kind of, like, picked up on, how the characters are being handled in this arc. And I do think it's interesting that, like, the whole Straw Hat crew is present for this arc, and they're all getting things to do. But it's like they haven't been fully brought together yet. But they're able to kind of like float around Wano and be at different points with different people at different times. Like a little moment where like Brooke goes into like the snowy place and meets up with Zoro for a bit, and then like so characters just kind of like shuffling around, and so not quite getting what I want of like all the Straw Hats being together and wrecking shit, but at the same time it's like that's coming off of two big arcs where we were kind of working with half the crew. I think this is a really interesting way to handle that.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I agree. And it is, like you said, everyone is going around doing something, right? Like everyone's contributing. That's how that word is pronounced. Contributing to.
But it's not just like you have two separate parties and they're doing their own things. It's like just characters are floating around everywhere, and so it's a lot more, I guess, flexible in that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, moving on with the reading, Robin escapes and she's able to go back to Orochi, with him none the wiser.
I do have to say, maybe it's just me being a dumb, unattentive reader, or inattentive rather. But like there were definitely a couple panels where I would get confused on which one was Robin and which one was Komurasaki. And then I eventually picked up that their eyes are at least distinguishable enough from each other, but at first
also,
there were definitely they are different, but I don't know.
No, I was more like, for me, I guess sometimes there would be a background, like one of the other geisha or oidrons, and I'd be like, when they're like the big spread with Orochi where he's got all of them around, and I'm like, okay, what, Robin's that one, I think. But at least I personally, I am rereading it as well, but I don't think I mixed up those two specifically, but they are, they're both attractive, and dark hair. So yeah, I gotcha. Did you have any thoughts about Kyoshiro, by the way? Because I just think he is kind of interesting with like some of his interactions. Like, he was the one shitting on Orochi last reading, and he's just got a bit more independence to him, I think. And
yeah, I'm definitely interested like where that's gonna go, because it kind of seemed like there's something going on with him, and definitely that one showdown that he had with Zoro briefly, I'm like, let's go. So
because Orochi's talking about the samurai that he's worried about, Odin and Momonosuke. The bodies were never found from Momo and Kinemon and all of them.
I like how there are kind of like gradually seeds of doubt sown in like some of the people working for Orochi, and how that kind of gets, I guess elaborated on later. But just that you have people who are kind of like, really, he's scared of ghosts, and it's like clearly that is building to like whenever this big fight happens, there are going to be some people within Orochi's ranks who are just kind of like not, they're not really believing the cause. They're not drinking the Kool-Aid. And just a lot of interesting little threads in this one.
Yeah, I guess that is something of note, because I was even just thinking about how like Orochi is, he's not jumping at ghosts. His fear is very real. Like, but it's just absurd to everyone because time travel. Like, how could Kinemon and them still be alive and just not existing for 20 years? How could that be? And yeah, everyone's like laughing at him behind, like, because no one really respects Orochi. It seems like they respect his power and authority, but like as a person, they could care less, I think, and he just doesn't have respect. And I don't remember getting that vibe with other, shitty leaders before, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, obviously there have been cases like with Walpole, for example, like the 20 doctors did go against him at the very end, but they weren't we didn't see them like laughing at Walpole behind his back or anything, right? Where we are getting that with Orochi. So I don't know, just something neat I noticed. And unfortunately, Toco finds that really funny. Because she's even laughing about how like everyone's making fun of the Shogun, and as she Orochi he's a spoiled child basically, and he's gonna throw a tantrum and try and kill the one who laughed at him.
It's
and
also
Komurasaki,
a really interesting moment in hindsight because, like, you know, part of Toco laughing is, like, you know, a side effect of eating the, you know, the remains of the smile fruit. And so it's like, I guess it's kind of in the same way where, like, the doubt is sort of being sown amongst his men. You know, maybe not necessarily the ones who are most loyal to him, but, you know, the underlings. And just how, like, you know, him being laughed at in this situation is kind of, you know, partially his fault. And just that whole regime between him and Kaido and, you know, the people in power that, like, yeah, you had these people, you know, with, like, the effects of the smile fruit and that, you know, you want everything to be, like, you know, Wano has to be, like, a shining land and there can't be any, you know, sorrow. There can't be any, like, dark spots. But then by doing that, you know, he's kind of created this situation where, like, you know, people are laughing at him and it's like, you know, he was going to kill Toco for that when it's, like, kind of his fault in a way. I thought that was an interesting bit of, is dramatic irony the word? I don't know.
I mean, maybe.
It's definitely some kind of ironic. Yeah.
You know, it's also right. Yeah, because we're not supposed to know about, like, Otoko having the smile fruit thing at this point. But no, it's definitely, that is Orochi. You know, like because he's got his line. He mentions it later in a context that fucking makes me want to fucking beat his ass. But, you know, like, don't mistake this place for paradise. And, you know, like, even, like, the way he's, like, smile is being spread around to, like, so that the poor people are ultimately, like, laughing at, you know, like, being more positive by force about their situation. But here it is, like, okay, so you want them to laugh about that negative thing, but these people around you laughing at your negative thing, like, oh no, that's too far. Like, you know, he's just, you know, he's reaping what he's sown, basically. Which, you know, and Orochi's a piece of shit. But then we get, you know, Komurasaki sort of, you know, she has her things that she refuses to stand for, and, you know, she's not going to let Otoko die, and, you know, which, of course, you know, this is her first, like, moment of, you know, positive moment that we've seen of her in the story thus far.
Yeah, and she fucking slaps the dude, and it's like, go!
Let's get his ass. Yeah, it's awesome. She's great. And of course, Orochi has, the fucking, Orochi fruit, basically, where he's an 8-headed snake monster. But he goes crazy. The ninjas jump in and, trying to get Robin, but of course, you know, then we get, there's also, you know, Nami and Shinobu. We're sneaking around, and we get the ball crusher Ninpo, which is just another one of those. When we were talking about earlier, that's the one I was thinking of just like do anything, call it ninja arts, where it's just like literally all she's doing is just hitting that dude, and oh, and then she also does paralysis jutsu, and it's like Nami's just like, no, that's just the result of your previous attack, and you're not doing anything special. Like, yeah, they're just, these are some terrible ninjas. But anyway, speaking of Kyoshiro being a fucking weird guy, so we see him cut down Komurasaki, but of course, she's not dead, and I don't remember what they bring up about that in this reading.
Yeah, I just kind of assumed, like, you know, with how One Piece is very, like, very careful about death in that way, I guess. I just kind of assumed that, like, yeah, she was struck down, but I was like, really? You know? Now, obviously, that was not the case with the other thing that happens later. Or, I mean, I guess I haven't finished the reading, so maybe I don't know, but, like, I don't know, tone and stuff.
Yeah. Because, you know, as he justifies it, he's protecting, you know, he gave her a warrior's mercy so that, you know,
yeah, I guess that's...
Because, yeah, Orochi's wouldn't, or go on.
Yeah, I guess that's also something that, you know, kind of makes me interested in, like, what exactly Kyoshiro's deal is, because, you know, on the one hand, it was, like, you know, him cutting her down so that, like, the Shogun could save face. I think that being one of the reasons that was given. But also, like, you know, there's definitely a window for her to... Or a window for Kyoshiro to have struck her down in a way that looks like she's dead, and, like, he's kind of taking the heat on himself for that moment. But, very well could have, like, pulled his punch in a way. So maybe that was also part of why I'm, like, uncertain if she was actually,
Yeah. So, going on, Orochi gets pissed. Robin takes Toco. Nami brings out Zeus. And, they, blow the popsicle stand, so to speak. Nami's definitely got, like, she's like one of the weakling trio, but then she also has, like, I guess I kind of see her as a glass cannon, because she can do damage. She can put in the work offensively.
Yeah.
Because the whole mountain is like, or the whole palace is just like, whoa, shit, from that lightning bolt. So yeah, just I don't know. Nami's good.
Let's go, Nami. I also really appreciated throughout this whole segment Brooke just being a spooky ghost and just freaking people out.
I love.
And like later when he's like, I was told to hide in the well and tell people a curse upon you, and then they just donated a bunch of food as like offerings, and yeah.
Also, you have another Brooke silly boy, ghost boy gag was when later when Robin and Usopp were trying to escape, and he's just like following them, and the guy is even like they like let them go, and they're like, did you notice they were being haunted? And like, I don't know, it's so silly. But anyway, before we go get there, we're back at Okobore Town, where so they're calling her Olin because so Charlotte Linlin is now Olin, and she's a good lady? ? I don't know. So also, you might recognize the reference a little bit, the of her licking her lips like that with the thumbs up. It's I believe it's like the candy mascot is called Peko, which you might remember that from Danganronpa 2, because if you remember, at one point,
yeah,
there's a mask with a licking the same tongue in the same kind of spot. So both that and this are references to the same candy mascot. Yeah, just a little nod there. And she's just like, hey, I like food. I'll take some more oshiruko. Oh boy. Okay, yeah. So we do see her crew again during this read. That's right. Because they're the crew's just talking about what to do, and arguing about who would be the captain if Big Mom died. Yep, they're still shitty. Like, they're not worried about their mother being alive or dead. They're just, I mean, yeah, at least as far as their mother, just as like, she's the most powerful member on the crew, and like, no, so I guess we'd be the Perospero pirates, huh? And it's like, no, the captain would be Katakuri. Like, God, I'm actually curious, because like, it is a monarchy, so I do wonder what would happen to the Big Mom pirates if like Big Mom died, because like there'd be like a succession war basically of like who's the because like, okay, she's not a formal ruler, so I don't know, I feel like there'd be like there could be a fucking civil conflict over that shit. So I don't know, it's a lot for a story, like One Piece is probably not going to go into that even if it did happen, but I don't know, it's just something I just thought about just now.
I did like the panel on the next page where like they're talking over the Smail, and there's like the one panel of Otama holding the phone, and she's just like crying and just being yelled at, and it's, I don't know, it's just funny.
I know, she's great. I was also noting that panel just because like Hitetsu's just worried about her, but he's doing it he's being a little mean, and she's just crying. She's so cute. So anyway, yeah, they're traveling along with Big Mom, and she's still Big Mom, like, oh, I like this Sharky Gator, and Chopper's like, yeah, because you fucking beat the shit out of it. And also like the gag where she keeps like, man, I'm really hungry, looks at Chopper in Emergency Rations. And he's like, don't look at me. Oh yeah, then we get a weird, so I don't think this comes up a lot in this reading, but the Sunachi cry that Momo's doing, that he said they'd learned from Zoro, and Kiku seemed to recognize it and be like, hey, don't say that.
Yeah, and then later Zoro mentions that, like, at least maybe I misread it, but, like, when he mentioned, like, the old man back on the island or whatever told me, I was assuming, I don't even think I'm quoting the dialogue bubble right, but I got the impression it was from, like, way back when he was, like, first training. And yeah, they do explain what it means later, so it's just like,
okay,
interesting to think about. Like, how did this like samurai battle cry from Wano managed to make it, like, all the way out there? Unless maybe I was misreading it. I don't know.
No, well, I don't want to fully go into it because I don't remember what's fully said in the manga, because a lot of it is also actually said in the SBS, of all things. Oh. And so to bring up an SBS from a previous volume, there was the mention of so the carpenter guy, Minatomo, I forget his name, the little guy with the nails in his mouth who was working with Franky. Someone pointed out how he looks very similar to, if you remember way back, there was the whole thing in, like, literally one of the first SBSs, because Higuma the bear in literally chapter 1, he broke down the door, and then on his way out of the saloon, the door was fixed, and so Oda made, like, a little gag where it's like, the carpenter was just walking by and he fixed it, and that carpenter looks a lot like this guy in Wano. Like, they have very similar designs, and someone's pointing it out, and I think Oda mentioned that they're, like, brothers, basically. So that guy was from Wano, basically. That carpenter that was on the Goa Kingdom in Windmill Village was from Wano, and I think he mentioned that, I forget what he mentioned exactly, but the implication seems to be that there some people from Wano left it at some point, I'll just leave that float in the air, and bring it up more in detail later on.
Because I think it was also mentioned that there was, like, someone from Wano on Whitebeard's crew, or someone who just dressed in the traditional garb, at least. That was,
I remember who that was, because Izo, who I remember that character, they were like 16th Division Commander or something, or maybe I'm misremembering the number, but yeah, I remember them from the war, where they're just like, they got, like, a kind of kimono garb, and the lipstick, that character is apparently, Wano, I think that, they mentioned that in the SBS, so, just a lot of, like, I don't know, because Oda's been building to Wano for life, like, really? Oda's been building into it since Thriller Bark, which was also the arc that he introduced, because, like, the Emperors came up, Garp mentioned them at the end of Ennia's Water 7, and then literally the arc after that, we got Ryuma, Moria grave robbing from Wano, he lost to Kaido. We also got introduced to Lola, who is one of Big Mom's daughters. And in this arc, you now have Kaido and Big Mom on Wano. So, like, Thriller Bark is just, like, almost, like, obviously, like, this whole saga started on Punk Hazard. But Thriller Bark sowed the seeds, for sure, for Wano. Which is, like, that's the long play. Like, so this is a big arc for
and it's probably not even going to be the longest play in One Piece.
No,
like, I'm sure that there's more to come.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, the group that escaped from Orochi's mansion, the flower capital, they're talking. I like how Robin's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I could only get a bunch of information. I couldn't get that much information." Just like when Orochi wakes up, on the day of the big battle, the contents of the offerings the Shogun's possession will have, the feast time, Kaido's favorite food, his crew hierarchy, the number of their men and weapons. Like, she's just like, no, you got plenty of information, Robin. But she's like, I don't know. She's so sad. Sad Robin, gloom, and it's just like. Oh yeah, and Brooks mentions that he found a ponyglyph, but it's not a road ponyglyph, but a ponyglyph, which is noteworthy.
I also, definitely in the moment of reading the chapter, like, obviously Oda took it places for, introducing stuff with the story and progressing things and whatnot, but I'm like, you really think it's safe to go to a public bath after you just, did, like, a little scuffle in the Shogun's palace? Like, are you kidding me? I was like, all right, it's fine, but it's just like, in the moment, it's like, why would you think that's okay? But it's funny in that way, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Because they definitely don't call attention to Oh no, never mind. I was making a mistake because I was like, oh yeah, they're talking about that now, and I'm looking at the pages where Sanji is just thinking about the woman's bath because he has his invisibility power and he's being a piece of shit. I'm like, oh yeah, they're just talking about that right now, going to the bath, and it's like, no, Sanji is on his own plane of existence.
Yep. Yeah, because he's like, I have the invisibility power now, so this is my priority.
Yep.
Classic Sanji.
Yeah, that is a thing that happens. Alright, anyway, back to Udon Prison for a bit. Eustace Kid escaped. Luffy's chillin'. And of course, he's sort of like clicked with, old man Hyogoro, who has sort of given up. And like Luffy gave him some food, or tickets for food. And, you're supposed to work for what you eat. And they're just being shitty. And Luffy's like, no, I'm not gonna let this old man die in front of me. Consequences be damned. Literally right as Queen is coming through the fucking door, which is just, it's so Luffy.
Yeah. Speaking of another character whose initial appearance does not carry the weight of what they actually are. Talking about the old man.
Oh, yes, there we go, right. For sure. Yeah, no, he's just a little guy, and nope, he's a really important little guy. So anyway, I think the big, way Luffy's able to like just sort of chill is because he's, because I think Luffy's like, I don't know, because obviously he just lost to Kaido and he's using this as training, which is good, but also like, as we've seen from Whole Cake Island, he's able to rely on other people now, so he's just like, let Raizo, he's a ninja, he's a sneaky guy, he can get the key and he'll figure all this out. So Luffy's just like able to, because like we get his line later where it's like, I've always been free, and like, which God, that's it's a good line, and I definitely have more to say on that.
Yeah, I also maybe it's just a little detail, but I found it funny that like in the past and in this arc as well, like you have like characters like Chopper and I think like Luffy and I don't know, like the characters who are very like childish and very interested in like cool things. Whenever they would like do the ninja imitation, they would be like nin nin, and then like the actual ninja is making that same noise. When I thought it was like that's not supposed to be how that works.
Sorry, that is funny, but also I'm remembering something later on unrelated to ninjas that's kind of similar in that it's like it's something really dumb and goofy and you never would expect, but it's also just how it works apparently. God, but yeah, no, it's just like, yeah, they're ninjas, so they say nin nin. That's totally how it works, and it's like, yeah, that is how it works apparently. And I like how like Raizo's like, nin nin, I've lived up to the ninja reputation. I've acquired a key. Now to escape quietly, he yells as he's jumping through the fucking hallway like, I'm stealthy. I don't know. It's so stupid. Also, so we talked a little about the aesthetic of Wano, and for some reason I didn't remember until I saw Daifuku, the scorpion guy, again, because his helmet reminds me of a character from Fist of the North Star called Jaggy. So yeah, because we talked about the aesthetic of Wano and it having like this, fantasy Japan aesthetic, but for some reason we completely forgot to mention how like Kaido's crew are these fucking Mad Max Fist of the North Star like weird guy, like leather and fucking spikes, and like they're a completely different aesthetic that very much like clashes with Wano. Which I think again it works as they are this outside element. But I just was really listening to that part during the editing, and I was like, fuck, why did I not bring that up? Because I remembered it, seeing this guy who specifically reminds me of Fist of the North Star, which has Mad Max influence. So so anyway, yeah, Luffy beats the shit out of the guard, and Kaido's crew is excited because Luffy's gonna die. The Wano prisoners are sad because Luffy's gonna die. Oh, yeah, and they also highlight how Luffy beat the shit out of this guy while wearing sea stone handcuffs. And to be fair, they are weakened sea stone handcuffs. Like, they negate powers and take away some stamina, but, like, they've deliberately been made so that, the prisoners can still work while wearing them. Yeah. But, still, like, the guy's even pissed off because it's like, so I'm even weaker than that? Like, fuck. And the warden comes in and blasts Luffy away. And then we get... Queen, one of the lead performers in full, and he is a goofball.
A bit.
He's just like, I mean, he's living up to his title as a lead performer by starting his introduction with dancing. And then I love how, like, I don't know, what endeared him to me immediately was, like, when it's like, okay, Babanuki, tell me what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, so your kid escaped, someone stole this sea stone key, and also Luffy's escaping, like, literally right now, and he's just like, what? Like, he's just like, he reacts like a normal fucking person after his silly introduction, and I was just maybe like, okay, yeah, Queen is good. I like him. I mean, obviously he's an evil piece of shit, but he's funny, and that's what matters.
I also did appreciate how, Luffy being handcuffed with the sea prism stuff, he's just like, I'm training now. Like, I'm using this to train, and it's like, yep.
Yeah, there is weights.
It's so good.
It's great. But yeah, then we cut to Toneyasu talking a bit, and to the others, as then it cuts to the bathhouse, as you mentioned,
and surprise, they get found out,
right? Like, yeah, you're right, they kind of don't call attention to that, to, like, what are they thinking by going to a public bathhouse. And of course, they're dropping some exposition about Hyogoro and the octopus that they, because we saw them at the start of the arc helping out a little bit with them getting into Wano, and apparently they're dudes who are help out in Wano or whatever. And then then we're back to the prison. Queen's trying to recruit Luffy, but since he's gonna kill Hyo, he's got a little something else in mind that's more exciting. Where we get the collars and the ring, the sumo, which is more of Luffy's training. And Raizo of course bumps into Kawamatsu, who he's gonna try and save. God, and I love Luffy so much as always, but here Kaido's like, oh man, he's doing sumo with people with weapons. It's like he's got no chance, and he just knocks him out with hockey, and it's like, next.
Yeah, it's so good. I also liked a little before that when just like another moment of Raizo the ninja being just like he's talking to Kawamatsu in the cell, and then they just move a cart out of the way, and he's just there, and then he disappears. But it's like, oh no, they found me. It's like
he's like fucking 9 feet tall. Like he's not proportioned that way, but he's big, and so it's like you're like, why are you a ninja? But it was his calling apparently. So, but anyway, back to the bathhouse. Drake comes in. Oh, that's right. They weren't even looking specifically for the people who escaped. They just because they were looking for the tattoos, the crescent moon. Tattoos.
They weren't looking for them, but they still ran into trouble, which is kind of like, oh no, who could have seen that coming?
Yeah, for sure. Nami becomes naked briefly, and as though I do like how Drake, I think. He doesn't take well to nudity.
Him standing outside of the bathhouse is just like, oh, okay, he's on the lookout for Soba Mask, but it's like, no, he had another reason for not going in. I also Sanji, just that moment of I don't know why, I don't know where my brain was at, but with Nami knocking everybody out when her towel drops. To me, it almost felt like, and this is like Gintama sandpaper levels of what the fuck. But to me, it almost it felt kind of like Conqueror's hockey in a way, like how everybody just fucking dropped and blood spurting out of their nose in a way. It's it's so stupid, but and the way that Oda talked about it after the fact in the SBS with something about her happiness punch or whatever, knocking
the
people's bounties down or something. And so it's in the same way that everyone else has had different power ups, and she's also had in Whole Cake she got the like thundercloud. So she's had like a power up there as well. But this is also just like, what the fuck? We're like fucking power scaling her like level of, I guess, like beauty and
sexuality, and
yeah, it's just like like on the one hand I don't really like the moment because I feel like for the like there are definitely other times where Nami's like not really like, she doesn't really have agency over like the way that she's presented sometimes. Like I remember back in Thriller Bark how she was kind of like a damsel that had to be rescued in that arc, and I wasn't but like for the most part I feel like she has a lot of agency in the way that she portrays herself, and can kind of like use her looks to her advantage, and this isn't really like, it's not her choice, so like in that sense I kind of don't like this moment, but also like I can't find it in me to hate it because I feel like it's so, like I said, I made the connection to Conqueror's Hockey where it feels like so goofy to have this like it also being like a method of like an increase in power. It's just like my brain fucking exploding.
Yeah, so I guess a couple things I want to note about it is like well, I mean, like earlier I just noted the line where she's like, because she was being oogled at even before this, because it was a mixed bath, but her thought wasn't like, oh no, I hate this. It was more like,
like I should be charging money,
which is the most Nami thing ever, because I mean, like the first happiness punch was purposeful, like she did that, so it's not like she's, I guess, like, in this case, she didn't want it because, like, the way she reacts it, where she, eek, and then she goes and grabs her towel, but, when she is a character who likes to be in control of her sexuality, right, and, so, yeah, like, charging money is just very Nami, but, I don't know, I guess, so, yeah, the moment with, because, it isn't in her control, and, I don't know, but also, I can't help but notice, because we didn't get this with the last time, but, there's women in the mixed bathhouse as well that also, like, one of them has hard eyes, and then
I did notice that.
the one of them, at least one of them, has a bloody nose. So that was that. Okay, all right, sure, I'll take it. And of course, Sanji dies because
Sanji fucking dies.
As is noted, like he literally could. It's a mixed bath. He could have been in there if he wanted to as just a regular, but instead he's like, no, I'm gonna use my power and do it sneakily because it's his dream, even though like. He's trying so hard to realize his stupid fucking dream that he doesn't need to use it to be in there. Like, god damn it, fucking Sanji. And of course he gets the shit beaten out of him later anyway. So, it's just dumb. Yeah.
I think I did also find it kind of funny that like when like Drake and Hawkins enter the bath, and it's like Sanji is just like. So it's like they're looking for him, and he just completely blew his cover, and you can even see like the blood on the mask. That it's just like, Sanji, my dude.
God, fucking idiots! They're all so stupid. Oh yeah, and Beppo has been captured along with Penguin and Shachi. That was another thing, I guess.
Not the polar bear.
No. So also last time I mentioned the name Benkei. I don't have a brain. I just forgot what this character was called. Because we're cutting to Zoro on the bridge with the weapon collector. So apparently, I need to look it up again. But there was something about how something about the kanji of his name. If you were Giga Brain, you could have predicted that he was a fox or something like that. Or
okay.
There's connections between like the actual character that he says he is, and then the Onimaru, I don't know. I just remember, I think it was AP Sandman who I'd recommend following him on Twitter if you're caught up to the manga, because he'll tweet about translation stuff. For example, actually one that's actually relevant to the reading is that, or stuff that we've read, because I think Akinu was talking to the Five Elders a little while ago, and apparently the Five Elders referred to Akinu more rudely than they did to Shanks. Like, they spoke to red-haired Shanks more respectfully than they talked to Akinu, which is interesting. Because, Shanks, they're treating one of the four emperors, a pirate, with more respect in just the way they refer to him than they did. Because I think it's like with Shanks, they used Akimi, which is just a more general way to refer to someone. But with Akinu, they called him Omae, which is more like a kind of a slightly ruder way to refer to someone. So, which is just What? Why? Like, it just adds another layer of intrigue to the fact that Shanks was talking to the five elders. So, but I feel like it was him who mentioned ages ago. There's other people who have talked about translation, so I might be misremembering. But if I'm not, it's definitely worth checking out. If you're caught up, because he's even talked about Film Red stuff, so I've had to try to avoid stuff because I haven't watched Film Red yet. But yeah, he just has some little notes on translation and stuff, and I feel like, I don't know, someone around the time was talking about this character and the fox and how there's kanji and stuff that it makes sense. But it just, in ways that can't easily be translated. So,
yeah.
But he fights Zoro for a bit over the Shisui, of course.
I like the expression on Chopper's face when they cut back to them, and he's just crying and clearly like pouting almost. That it's just like this is bad.
Like, everyone else is like, they don't really get it because they don't, have a full grasp on, like, the outside world and the other imprisoned
Yeah,
sea.
so, like, everyone else is kind of just, like, having a good time and, bantering and stuff, and then Chopper's just like, we're all gonna die.
Yeah, like, because she's still being, like, really morbid, like, the way, like, they're talking about the Oshiruko, and she's like, oh yeah, just like a piece of moon shines in like a frog's eyeball, and it's like, and Otawa's like, ew, that's so scary, and they're like laughing, and Chopper's like, oh god, she could eat us all, she'll kill us all, help me.
Chopper being the one voice of reason.
He's so cute, and yeah, that's such a good expression. Oh yeah, so now we get Luffy's training where he's talking about how like Rayleigh uses hockey in a way that Luffy hasn't been able to.
I really like this as a like a training, not training montage, but like a way for Luffy to train in the like, I don't know, I just think it's interesting, the whole thing of like he's in the prison and like everyone is kind of being worked against him, and he's just beating these like lower level guys but using them as like target practice to try and learn this new ability, and I think it all plays out really well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, especially like with the Sea Prism cuffs as well, and then later you have like the thing where he can't leave the circle, and it's just like different ways of being hindered and still finding ways to push through it.
Yes. Then we also get sort of because we already knew about Ryuma a bit from Thriller Bark, and I believe we both went out of our way to read Monsters, the original one shot. So he's Gyukimaru, that's the name of the guy. He kind of frames monsters in the context of One Piece, where people were looking to Wano for its gold, and he was called he was the one who helped keep these gold hungry foreigners out of the island, and even cut up down a dragon. So, Zoro just wants his fucking sword back. Oh yeah, they also bring up a little tidbit that doesn't come up in this reading, I think, but how the Shisui is a black sword, and he mentions that it was forged that way, which I think that comes up later, but it is interesting to note. Oh yeah, then Komurasaki and Toco are gasp alive and under attack by earlier we got like they were mentioning like notable figures in Wano, and one of them was Kamazo the Manslayer, who he has a little bit of a fight with Zoro.
Yeah, and it's just like it's so interesting, I think, like anytime going through a One Piece arc and kind of being more in the beginning stages, or at this point we're getting closer to the midpoint, but just like whenever a new character pops up, it's like, all right, how are they going to come back? How are they going to be relevant in the grand scheme of things? Because it's like, there's not just going to be a character who shows up and does nothing.
Yeah, well, and this one was specifically interesting because, like, I don't know how you'd have to have the Giga Brain to predict who it actually is, but it's like, the fact that, like, we don't recognize him because his mask is off, like, something about that's really funny to me.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's Masker Man Killer without his mask. Therefore, we cannot tell that he is actually Masker Man Killer. So, I don't know, something about that amuses me. But yeah, Zoro, even though it's briefly a 2-on-1 fight where he gets, stabbed, because...
God, when he gets fucking, like, stabbed, and then he just holds it there, and then keeps going, it's just like, God. Zoro's so cool.
Yeah, just as a, fucking god. Yeah, Zoro's really cool, and he does his onigiri, but with a scythe instead of a sword.
Yeah.
The purgatory onigiri. It's like, god, yeah, he's cool. Like, there's people really like him, and I understand why. He's very awesome.
Yeah, I feel like, like Luffy kind of having some badass moments with like the, all the training that in the prison, but also just like Zoro, like, I can't wait to see him have like a big fight, because he's so cool.
Yeah, right. Like, he's mostly been fighting, like, having brief scuffles with relatively like weaker characters, it seems like, so far. Which is also, well, I mean, see, like, Luffy had a pretty big scuffle with a pretty strong character. It was also just very short, because Luffy was the weak ass guy in that encounter with Kaido. But yeah, Zoro's down for the count for a moment. We see, Kinemon sort of talking about the failure with their symbol that leaked out, and Kaido's men still looking out for that. We cut back to Ebisu Town, where Sanji has gotten the literal shit kicked out of him. How does a human face get punched to make that shape? It's pretty funny. Then you get a little interesting interaction between like Shinobu and Law. Well, because like Shinobu's been kind of this comic ninja, as the ninja's been pretty silly so far. But here she has like they're having a legitimate like because Law obviously doesn't want to sacrifice his comrades because he does care about them, and Shinobu doesn't want their raid compromised because they've been waiting for so long for this, and because she's like, oh, ninjas, they kill the weak elements, it's just all that, and it's like, so she's using that, but it's in a more serious way this time.
Yeah, and I really liked Law's response, where it's kind of like, if that's your attitude towards this, then like, how am I supposed to trust you if you don't trust my crew? And so it's like they're both, they both have perspectives that make sense, and but they're still like butting heads over it.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, there's some also other interactions around that where it's like a little bit later, but I'll bring it up now, where like Usopp and Nami are like, I wouldn't blame them for leaking the plan because I would literally do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And, I think earlier Usopp was like, oh, don't let them capture me. I'm going to leak everything because I'm a fucking bitch.
And then Sanji's like, I'll protect you.
And he's like, ha, it worked. Right? Because and Conjure sort of brings it up here where it's like, things are going wrong here, but it's like, these people, yeah, they don't agree with our beliefs all the time, and their goals just happen to line up with our own, and it's a miracle that we have these allies in the first place. So it's like he's more accepting of their ideological differences, because like he understands how rare of a chance this is. So it's an interesting little conflict. So anyway, going back to Zoro, we get the Komurasaki flip reverse card, where it's like, no, she's not actually this terrible, horrible monster, just like Orochi. No, which we already knew from, her standing up to him, but, like, we just get so much more from her, I think, whereas of her being a nice lady.
Yeah, I like the part where she tells everything to Zoro, and then is like, maybe he's working with my brother. Oh, unless you're an enemy. And it's like, nah, you're good.
She's a little dope. But yeah, she just casually mentions like, oh yeah, I'm Hiori, Momonosuke is my brother, and Zoro's just like, that little imp is that's how's he your big brother? He's like 8. But then and she has so many good faces, like, yeah, the way you mentioned, like, oh, unless you're my enemy, and she just goes like from happy to not happy. Also, so yeah, she was mentioning how, like, Otoko helps, she's, been helpful to Komurasaki to, like, her cheeriness helps me get through the day. I don't know, something about, like, emotional support Toco is, I don't know, she's great. But yeah, she talks about...
Oh yeah, I see the face now where she's like, I'm just so happy, but I won't cry, and she's like just really trying to hold it back.
So
and then Toco is just laughing at her because it's like, that's a funny face.
It is. She's like, I'm the daughter of a samurai.
She is the audience.
I mustn't cry, and then makes goofy face trying not to cry. Like yeah, I definitely feel like this chapter is like, okay, if you were at a sort of like wobbling point with her due to how she was introduced, it's like this chapter is definitely trying to make you tilt towards liking her. We get her backstory with Kawamatsu, raising her, basically, returning her smile after she lost everything. Yeah, we do get a cut to the prison at the Flower Capital, where Beppo insists that they did not spill the plans, so we still don't know where the leak came from of information, actually. But then we get more Luffy training, where he's using his future sight to guide Hyogoro to not getting hurt, and
yeah. And then I like how the armadillo man goes to block Luffy's punch, and then Luffy just doesn't hit him, and he's like, that's not right. And he's just like, what?
Right. So also, I think, oh no, that's next chapter. Never mind, or later. But yeah, we see that Hyogoro is able to use the hockey technique that Luffy wants to do. So yeah, he's an awesome old man, which we kind of were getting at before when we were introduced to Hyogoro the Flower, the former Yakuza leader. The context I was bringing up earlier. We both mentioned the scene earlier, but when Nami and Usopp were talking outside of the house, and it's like they're literally just dynamic wise, here we have the two most grounded and normal of the Straw Hats.
Yeah.
Just talking about how I'd give up all the information too. I don't blame Beppo at all, and just a good little moment for them. Then we find out more about the three guys who Komurasaki shot on, where it's which now recontextualizes her actions in that Hiori was using her power as an Oiron to actually she's getting rid of these bad people basically, and remove, now they no longer have the power to hurt more people basically. So frames her actions in a different light, which is nice.
And then Tonoyasu comes up to the group, and they're talking, and then they're like, do you know who that guy was? And they're like, no, no idea who that was.
Yeah, he was like, oh yeah, he's got a big battle coming. He's talking like he's one of the allies, and then he's just, it's pretty funny. And he's just being super pleasant, and Robin's like, who is Tonoyasu? And they're like, we don't fucking know.
Yeah, I liked Sanji's reaction as well. It's you've been talking to him this whole time without knowing who he is, and they're like, well, he did most of the talking.
I mean, that's relatable. I remember once I was at a community college, and someone struck up a conversation with me, and they knew who I was by name, and I did not know this person, and I was just kind of pretending that I did, and I never saw them again, and I was like, fuck. Because I don't know, it's very real, being struck with this unexpected familiarity, and you don't know where, I don't know. So it's just it's obviously silly in here, but it's I don't know, it's something I've experienced. So
cut back to Luffy beating the shit out of more prisoners, and it's just nope, that's wrong. It's just everyone just watching on what that. He's beating the shit out of these people, and that's not what he's looking for?
Right. We also get Caribou being helpful. He's got his cuffs off, and then we get the moment I talked about earlier where Luffy's like, fine, I'll let you help me as long as you changed. And he's like, what? That was too easy. I'm afraid.
And also just fucking Raizo hiding in his cloak.
Or, no, in his body. Remember? Because he's got the swamp fruit.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Like I said, I did not remember where we were introduced to Caribou.
God, looking at his face where he's trying to appeal to Luffy, and he's just he's got a big smile, and he's blushing a little bit, and it's grin, heart, and it's God, he's so weird. Oh man. But yeah, then and talking with Hyogoro, it turns out that most of the criminals in Udon are actually people who are opposed to the rule of Wano. So it's actually, they're just sitting on a whole fucking den of people who can help their cause, and which is, I don't know, it's one thing that the Straw Hats are very much able to do. Like we see it during the time skip where they like Kuma just sent them to these other places and they were prepared to leave and go back to the Grand Line. But, stay there for 2 years. And they turned this loss into an opportunity to grow, right? And they where they were able to find these ways to get more power. And so, here's Luffy. He took his loss from Kaido. He's in prison. And now he's not only getting more power to himself, but he's getting more power to the alliance of the that's going to go against Kaido. So it's cool. And someone else is coming to Udon. It's Big Mom. It's Olin. That's her name now. She's not Big Mom. She's Olin. Yeah. So anyway, it turns out they captured Ushimitsu Kozo, the witching hour boy who was stealing from the rich and giving to the poor in the dead of night. And of course, Orochi decides to take it as like, okay, we're gonna have the funeral of Komurasaki, and then we're going to be executing this opposer. So we'll just advertise it to the whole world. This will not, or at least the whole country. This will not backfire us on us in any way. So yeah, so many moving parts as Ashura's men get attacked because of the note that Kinemon left. Brook finds Zoro, who's resting with Komurasaki and Otoko. Where it's like, I don't know, something about their interactions, because it's like, I've noticed like a lot of the Straw Hat guys, mostly the earlier ones, have been, like Luffy's got Hancock, Sanji has Pudding, Usopp has Kaya, of course, way back on his home island, and I don't know, I'm just wondering, like, because obviously there's, Zoro and Tashigi have had a more antagonist relationship, but now here's, he's literally got, the pretty lady of Wano just like all over him. So I was just wondering, it's like, is Oda gonna put all these characters in relationships by the end of the series? Who knows?
I also just noticed that in the panel where Brook finds them, like, even though he doesn't have eyes, the like shadow is popping out of his head and he has a tongue. I noticed the eyes, but I didn't think about the tongue for some reason, like, because he should not have a tongue. Brook, what are you? He's great. Also, there's something about Komurasaki, because, like, they're talking for a bit, and Brook's like, I'm jealous, and Zoro's like, we were sleeping, and Komurasaki was like, oh man, everyone would probably get really mad about the idea of you sleeping next to me, the famous Ora of the country. Is that thought exciting to you? And he's like, I don't. You can look on the bright side of anything, can't you? Like, I don't know, just like she's silly. But yeah, it turns out Toneyasu was Ushimitsu Kozo, and he's Toko's dad. Which so she immediately goes running after her captured father, and shit's getting real. Shit's picking up. Yeah.
Like, it's all been a lot of moving parts, and now it's, I guess we're moving into the climax for Act 2. Oh boy, alright. So now we get the execution of Yasu the Hedgehog, who like uses his, like, God, I don't know, what did you think? Because we get the flashback with him talking to Odin's retainers, or Odin himself, actually, and then we also get the one with the retainers.
Wait, what was the question again?
Oh, it's just, I don't know, what did you think about this whole sequence? Because we got the flashback with Odin of him being like, he's kind of stern, but ultimately like looking out for it, like like he mentions tough love, with Odin getting kicked out by his father,
yeah, I think it is, like, I guess it's interesting how this whole execution connects a lot of dots. In terms of, like, you get little bits on Odin, the whole thing of, like, the whole town of Ebisu and just, like, the way that he carries himself and kind of giving back to them, and just him, like, his dying speech also, like, recontextualizing what the symbols meant, and like trying to throw off the enemy while also inspiring, like, the army at the same time, and it's just a lot going into this.
Yeah, no, I actually like teared up both when I was reading this weekly and when I was rereading it, because, like, I don't know, it's also another thing I got out of it is because, like, One Piece has had a whole, like, growing up angle that I did a whole video about a while ago. And here we have Yasui as he's been kind of this, like, he is an adult figure. He helped the Scabbards, who are now like they're adults in themselves now. Like they're, in their 40s and 50s and stuff if they didn't get jumped to the future. And so, he kind of helped them with be better retainers for Odin. And, he's now taking on the burden of, like, the mistakes of the raid where, like, information leaked, like, things were going pretty badly. And so by, like he turned himself in, basically. Like, he was perfectly free last we saw him. And it's not like they knew he was Ushimitsu Kozo. So he basically, like orchestrated this whole execution, like turning himself in and letting himself die so that, like, the raid could be successful because, and just, so here you have another parent figure who here he's someone who believes in Wano's beauty and he has hope. And, he's like, and he, even with this, the smiling thing, and he's giving himself up to try and make the raid successful. And, God, I don't I like his words and, the way he's, like, shitting on Orochi and, I don't know. Yeah, it's just a good speech.
And then also, like, how he says, like, he's gonna, die laughing and, like, how that, and then, like, the whole thing with the townsfolk who, are, like, smiling and laughing throughout all of this because, like, they don't have a choice. And so, like, just how, I guess, like, with him, going out with a smile on his face and, like, laughing and singing, he's sort of like, in the same way that he kind of carried himself as being, like, this saint and, like, trying to, like, inspire the townspeople and keep them going and stuff like that. Like, he's sort of, God, just the way that, like, I was really impressed with, like, the way, because we were introduced to, like, the smile fruits, like, way back in Punk Hazard or Dressrosa.
Damn.
And just, like, the way that it all gets to this point where, like, everything is recontextualized and the smiles, like, both, like, the townspeople are plagued by it, but also the fact that, like, he goes out with a smile on his face and, like, are there parallels to Roger at all? Like, with how...
I definitely think, like, because, again, he is a parent figure sort of ushering, like, working to usher in a new change. So I definitely... And I thought about the smile fruit because I definitely think, like, yeah, the characters are forced to be smiling and laughing. Like, even, like, we see all the Ebisu townsfolk and especially Otoko, like, the one panel where she's just like, my daddy is dead. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah.
Like, and just, like, that one hurts me. Like, that's where the tears start coming in, where it's just like, because Otoko is just a good little girl having the worst day of her fucking life and she can't properly get across her emotions because of the smile fruit. But what I'd say about Toneyasu, because, like, he also has tears in his eyes for sure, and he's talking about, like, going down singing, like, I think you can interpret that, like, he's, forcing himself to be happy because of his, he's trying to be inspiring and positive. Yeah. Like, that's been his whole thing. But also, with One Piece in mind, with just, like, Jaguar, Saul talking about, like, laughing when it's hard, and, like, Roger being able to smile as he's executed, Yeah. Well, because, like, I think my thought about that is, like, because Luffy has his line where he's like, I was always free, where he's, being imprisoned, right? And so you can also say that emotionally the smile users are trapped in that they have to be smiling, but, it's also like Luffy says he's free while he's choosing to be captured when you could also argue he doesn't have a choice, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of an interesting thought because I think, like, when people think of, like, freedom, if your stance on freedom is, like, always being free, then in a way you can be trapped by that same thought, like, because if you feel the constant need to be free, but then, like, so I don't know, it's so, like, with Toneyasu, it's like, kind
of doing something similar of, like, turning himself in and then, like, going out in this way
with a smile, right? Because it's like he's forced to be laughing and smiling, but I think he's also the kind of person who would choose to be laughing and smiling even if he didn't have a choice, right?
Yeah.
So I guess so basically what I'm trying to say is my reading of the scene is that, like, he's going out with a smile and laughing because he chooses to, even though he also doesn't have a choice in the matter, if that makes sense, which I think makes that more, because he is meant to sort of evoke, like, like you said, Roger and Luffy in some certain ways, like with the, like Luffy is always free and, Toneyasu can always laugh. But of course, the tragedy of the smile fruits is that, people don't have, a lot of people don't have that choice.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting how this also, like you said, like being able to like, laugh during like emotional and trying times, and how like, that does get recontextualized through like what seems like I can't, it's been a while since reading One Piece, so I can't remember how often that point comes up, but like, that can also be twisted into a negative of like, if you try to, I mean, I get that these people don't have the choice, but it's like, being forced to kind of always have like a positive face and, laugh in the face of hardship. It's like that can also be damaging in its own way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And just like, the way fucking like, and like you were bringing up with how it sort of like frames, like where you get that one page where it's got Caesar, Doflamingo, and Kaido, where it's sort of framed like how, like, because we knew like they're sad, where the chemical that they destroyed on Punk Hazard, and then the Smile Fruit Factory, which they destroyed on Dressrosa, and here we see like why it's named that, and it just fits so perfectly, and it's a mockery and fucking of these characters being horrible, and like God, and the way Orochi is like, because he like when he's like, that's it, the spirit, my subjects laugh him into the afterlife, this is Wano, you might mistake it for paradise. So that's the moment where I'm like, Orochi, you're a fucking piece of shit and I will destroy you. Right, because it's just like he's like you said, he sort of, he doesn't like being laughed at himself, but he also he was the one who suggested like the Smile Fruits be consumed, the leftovers be consumed by the people of Wano, and forcing them under this curse of laughter, basically. So it's like, God damn, it's so good. Like the way it like links, like you said, draws so many threads together, even from outside of the arc.
I also just find it interesting how it's like, as far as like death in One Piece, really holding like a lot of weight, and it doesn't happen all that often. Like in the present, in the past, a lot of characters have it as like part of their backstory and like overcoming loss and things like that. And so just, am impressed by Oda being able to just introduce a character in this arc and then, have him do all these goofy things, and that, but then like also, actually like kill the character off, but like in such a way that carries so much weight and is like a really, big sticking point in the grand scheme of the arc. And it's just, it's like, I don't know exactly where I was trying to take that thought, but it is just impressive.
No, I mentioned it before, where it's like, I like Tonegasu as a minor Wano character, and this scene is basically why, because it's just so well done, I think, and it just, it hits me, and it's good. And like, just looking at the way the reactions we see, where like the people who knew him, and didn't recognize him, then there's the panel with Luffy where he's still fat because he just ate, but for some reason, like, I don't like reading it, I didn't take like humor from that, because he's also angry, and like I'm thinking about what he's saying, and like it takes away from some of the humor of just like how it looks, even, right? Like out of context you'd see this and like it'd be funny, but in context, after watching the execution, it's like, I don't know, I don't have the room to take the humor from Luffy being fat, because of like he's pissed, right? Like, and I know Luffy being pissed off has weight to it, right? So it's just, I don't know, it's really, it's like, it's well done.
And then this was, sorry, no, you go.
No, I was just gonna say, I mentioned last time because they were called the Gifters, and I realized later that I don't think it had been directly mentioned, or explained fully, at least, because I remember like pleasures, I'm pretty sure had been mentioned. Like, I feel like they mentioned some of these terms before, because it's not until this chapter where they fully explain, waiters are waiting to get their chance to eat a Smile Fruit, gifters have already gotten their powers, and then pleasures did not get powers, and they're stuck laughing like the people of Ebisu Town. I just bringing up that I mentioned that before, or one of the terms before, but what were you gonna say?
Well, I guess maybe now the way that I'm thinking of, like, with like Yasu being, I guess like the fact that, a minor character death in this way can have, I won't necessarily say the same amount of weight, but can have like a lot of like gravity to it in the same way as like a major character death, in this, like how, when you would think of like memorable character deaths, you would probably think of, the major ones like Jiraiya and Naruto, or like in One Piece you have Ace and Whitebeard. But like here is a character who we only just met in this arc, and it still feels like his death has weight comparable to that in a way.
I understand
just
what
in
you're
a different
saying,
context.
For sure, because it's presented. Yeah, it's just the way it's presented and the way it's built up to, and the way that it has fallout is, he's got a notable weight on the story for being such a minor character. At the end of the day, it's good.
Yeah, and then like and about like carrying that weight of like, when Zoro and Sanji step in to protect Toco, it's like, oh shit, oh fuck, here we go, let's go.
Yeah, well, before that you also get like, because Orochi recognizes Toco and it's like, he wants to kill her, of course. And she's trying to like, oh, don't, Dad, this toad oil will cure you.
Oh,
and
God,
like,
no!
I'm so
like I remember when she brought that up to Zoro, like, oh, I have this, miracle medicine, and it's like, oh God, it's the toad oil, and then it came back, and it's like, Usopp's like, no, that's not, and it's like, ah!
It hurts.
Hurts just a little bit.
And then, of course, so yeah, and like, we mentioned, I think you mentioned like Zoro and Sanji having their conflict, and like the way they both come in to defend Toco is like so, because obviously they both actually have connection to her, like Sanji met her when he was serving Soba, and Zoro met her with Hiori, and then of course the fact that they're just like, they're so angry at each other, and they're such rivals, but also a big part of that is that they're so similar to each other, because like at the same moment they both jump in, and it's kind of linking these two threads that have been distant for like they haven't met before since they haven't been together since fucking Dressrosa, I'm pretty sure. And this is when Zoro and Sanji are back, baby. And it's like as uniting against Orochi, and it's fucking cool. And yeah, also, I guess in a little note that I didn't pick up before, because as they're arguing with each other, but also Zoro gives Otoko to Sanji, which I just sort of realized was like, he's trusting her with him because he knows, he does recognize Sanji, like, they're angry at each other a lot, but I definitely think they can't just ignore the fact that the other is really strong. And also Sanji cares about women, so he would protect Otoko, right? And just the way, I don't know, just a little note of just Zoro being, recognizing him a little bit, even though I think he's also like, because I think someone did the count of like how many times they've referred to each other, or in certain ways, and Sanji's actually called him Zoro like twice, like had called him Zoro twice at that count, where I don't think Zoro's ever called him Sanji. But like, so it, like, but you at least get this little nod of like recognition here, which is good. So yeah.
I'm like, which movie is it? Movie 5 where they fuck that up? Oh God, that movie.
It's not. Yeah, another one that fucks us up. I think the game Jump Force, the one that people don't like because it looks really weird. It also has Luffy calling Sanji curly brows, which isn't what he calls him. That's what Zoro calls him. So it's just like they fuck up little characterization bits at times too, apparently. Yeah. But anyway, then we get
just like the moment of Zoro just like, swinging his sword at the Shogun, and then it's like Kyoshiro jumping in, but just like the sequence of panels where it's like zooming in on the Shogun's face, and it's like, oh, he's gonna fucking die, and then it's like, nah.
You want it to happen so badly, but nope. Kyoshiro may not respect Orochi, but he'll protect him.
Yeah, because doesn't he have a line about him being like the Shogun's dog?
Yes, I believe he says something. He's a loyal dog to the end, even if he'll shit on him and go against his orders at times, even. But he tells Zoro that he is the Shogun's dog. So, but yeah, Luffy's cheering on his friends. He's like, "You guys, get him, guys!" Luffy's so good. All right, then we get.
Oh yeah, I just realized that this is kind of a moment where it's like not all the Straw Hats, but like a lot of the Straw Hats kind of having a moment where it's like, they're back and fighting off the enemy together for the first time in a while. Yes. Like, you're missing Chopper, you're missing Luffy, but you have, like, most of them here. And I guess that's just kind of cool to see.
Yeah, no, because you're right, it has been, like, because they were together before, but they weren't fighting, and now it's like, yeah, team up, Straw Hat, let's go. Almost. We're so close to having all of them. But anyway, So then back at the prison, they captured Kamazo, the manslayer, and Kid, and we find out that Kamazo is Killer. That one fucking hit, that I remember reading it, and that one just hit me a bit just because it was so unexpected. And then there's like, there's the kind of like, because Kid's talking about how like Killer hates the way he laughs, and he stopped laughing, and he covered up his face with his mask, and like laughing is tied specifically to Killer's like backstory, and then it turned like going back to the freedom thing, like he's not able, like he's forced to laugh now even though he hates it, and we can assume that like I think I forget if they stated it or if I just like inferred this, but him being this manslayer, he was probably like he had his spirit broken by Orochi or Kaido, and then was starting being used to kill, like he was going after Komurasaki, right? So he's sort of this, he's been broken and turned into a weapon of the guy he's up against because of, and fucking Kid is not happy about it.
Yeah, that also kind of gave me the impression that like that was part of how they were able to capture Kid, is that like because he obviously has this attachment to his second in command, and is like doesn't want him to be, I don't know. Yeah, of course. No, that makes sense. As you were saying it, I was like, was that directly stated? Because that makes a lot of sense, but maybe it wasn't, because I couldn't find it. But it makes sense that Kid escaped, but he was caught because like he recognized Killer, like he might have even recognized the laugh, and wanted to help his comrade out, but it didn't go well, and now they're both captured. And but then it also kind of gives you the weight of like whenever Kid gets to do something, he's fucking pissed, so like he's gonna go off.
Oh yeah, for sure. But anyway, so yeah, Queen adds another layer to the game where he's gonna kill Kid and Killer as long as Luffy's alive.
It's so fucking so malicious, so fucking shitty.
Right? Because because Luffy doesn't want them to be hurt, but he's also like, he even says like they don't have anything to do with me. So but like Queen even says like who said you could feel hope? Like he's just, again, he's trying to crush their spirits. He wants subservient soldiers who are just broken, like Killer is, and he's gonna find a way to do that. And then we get the sort of what is TV tropes called, the Diabolus Ex Machina, where we have who's the actual hero in this situation? It's the villain. It's motherfucking Big Mom. Though there's a little fake out, because like we get the panel at the end of the chapter where she's like, oh, Shiruko, and it's like, oh no, she's having her hunger pangs. She's gonna have her temper tantrum. But then it turns out, no, she's not. No, she's actually fine. But we cut away from that for a moment, as we get more of the fighting at the capital.
Oh god, the moment where this is probably one of those like fucking go Sanji moments where it's like he's fighting Drake, and it's like, the Vinsmoke bloodline. He's like, don't you ever say that name again, and just because I think Drake and Law are both from the north, which is why they recognize Germa. And Vinsmokes, but Sanji is not happy. More Brook spooky shit.
He's so silly. And then we get a little encounter between Law and Hawkins, where unfortunately Hawkins has used his powers so that in order to be cut down, he has to Law would have to kill the people he's trying to save. So Hawkins is fucking devious as shit.
And what the fuck is going on with the Law?
Oh yeah, and there's a little brief moment where Sanji sees Komurasaki Hiori hanging off of Zoro, and he's like, but he's got a lower bounty than me. Like,
it's so good.
He's so stupid. So yeah, Big Mom's coming to Udon. I skipped over a brief scene, but we'll come back to that. And we see that no, she's not actually having her hunger pangs, and it's like she, it's actually, I love the gag where it's like she's become the good person about food in this situation because Luffy ate all the Oshiroko, and she wants to share it with everyone who gave her food earlier. Like, that's something Luffy does, right? People give him food. He's your friend for life. He'll share the food. And now Big Mom's kind of being like that. But it's like a role reversal where Luffy's the glutton who's ate all the food, and it's so good. Oh man.
I also like the little panel of Chopper where he's like, "There's Oshiruko inside." That was a bluff,
and it was actually true. Yeah, it's goofy.
Oh, and also just like I guess the fact that Queen stands up to Big Mom is just kind of like I guess a sign of just like the fucking like levels of strength we're dealing with now. Where it seemed to get the impression that like he's not gonna beat Big Mom, but he's still like no, not my Oshiruko.
I'm not gonna let this emperor push me around. I'm one of Kaido's like top guys, and then nope, he gets immediately like, crushed into the fucking ground. And then like he's basically two shot, which is pretty impressive. For anyone to take two good fucking hits from an emperor and still be alive, and like he actually gets up like not long after that, but it's like she makes short fucking work of him, and everyone's like, oh fuck, Udon's in trouble. Because in the chaos she's able to keep she saves Kid and Killer. Then of course Raizo and Caribou cut off the communications so that Udon becomes isolated, which is super important for later.
And so it is like legitimately like, Caribou did a really good thing for this group, and it's like, you owe me, and it's like wow, yeah.
Caribou good ? And so as far as expressions go, because Big Olin finds the Oshiruko, and she's so happy, and then she looks inside, and she's so sad. I love, like, I mentioned this before, I love Big Mom. She's a great antagonist, and she's just so good.
I also like how they repeat the gag later where, I forget exactly how it happens, but she sees it again and opens it up, and there's kind of another similar expression of like, just like,
and of course Luffy's like, man, that Oshiruko sure was good. Big Mom's like, death glare. God, it's so funny. I like how Luffy thinks that she doesn't recognize him because of his great samurai disguise.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know about the memory loss. And then of course, in a moment of crisis, Luffy's able to use the haki that he wants to. Oh yeah, I guess I forgot to mention it earlier, but the way they explain this kind of haki, the flow of it, is definitely meant to reference Zoro versus Mr. One, and how he sort of uses I think Hyogoro even specifically mentions like being able to cut steel but not paper or something like that. Being able to cut what a swordsman wants to cut, and so like because I already added a correction, but in my loop video on the Katakuri and Mr. One, or the mid-battle flashback, I went on a rant that had nothing to do with the video about how I don't feel like Zoro's breath is haki, and then I have since gone, and there's a comment pinned that corrects that, but this chapter definitely gave me a fucking L. Or that chapter rather, but so I wanted to mention
I don't think I had fully made the connection, but then I guess it also makes sense like when he gets his hand on the sword and it immediately like forces it out of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like how, because like haki in general has sort of been like, because I guess that's technically, so there's Shanks using it in like chapter 1 with the Sea King. Then I think the next appearance is Zoro versus Mr. One, where he sort of like taps into this aspect of haki, just as a and uses it to cut steel. And then I think Blackbeard mentions it on Jaya, that he mentions Luffy's haki in not the official translation. And then I think so just like, but I guess I bring it up because I like the way that this training and this exploration of armament haki sort of like it ties back to the Zoro's breath. It ties back to like what Rayleigh did with remember, because when he took the collar off of Kami back on Saboti, like he crushed it and threw it aside. Like we even see like a flashback to that, and so it just ties back a lot of the uses of haki, while Luffy is learning this new technique. So it's kind of cool. Another point that I think is interesting is because Hyogoro is like Olin's coming after them, and
he just fucking stands there and is like, no, this is part of your training, you have to do this. And then Luffy's like, all right, I got this, and then just gets fucking smacked.
Well, yeah, so, like, because he says that, it's in the midst of danger that power truly blossoms. And I think this is really interesting because it's, like, it's very fitting to One Piece because, like, I think people, get mad about, like, oh, how are these, like, Luffy's only been a pirate for so long, how is he able to stand up against these emperors? Because they have this, like, idea that the time investment equals the output. But what I think this sort of mechanic of hockey allows for is basically, like, if the characters who are punching up, who are putting themselves into these moments of crisis, are getting the power boosts, right? Like, they're the ones who are getting stronger. Like, Big Mom, she, like, we have no indication that she's seriously fought ever, really. Like, if she fought, before, like, it was, and if she did have a serious fight before, it would have been when she was a while ago, right? Like, when she was much younger. Like, these characters aren't pushing themselves and trying to fight stronger foes, so their hockey isn't blooming. They're not gaining more abilities, right? One point to note is that Big Mom is technically a swordsman. She uses a sword, but she's not considered the greatest swordsman in the world because, like, which I always sort of framed it is that, like, yeah, she uses a sword, but she's not, like, she doesn't have skill with it. She's basically just, like, swinging this big hunk of, hat metal around, right? Like, she doesn't have the technical skill with a sword that Mihawk does. Even though, she could probably beat Mihawk in a fight, but if she restricted herself to swordplay, I don't see her doing it, basically. But, I don't know, and I just think it's it's also really fitting to, going back to, like, what I was talking about last time about how, like, newer information makes older content better. Luffy versus Katakuri is fucking, it's fucking phenomenal, and I talked a lot about why I love this, but this moment actually makes me like that fight even more, because Katakuri choosing to, like, restrict himself, like, he gets rid of his weapon, and he goes to fight Luffy one-on-one because he wants to strengthen himself, like, he's pushing it, and he does grow as a person, through that, and, like, it's sort of the same, like, it's through danger that power blossoms, like, so here you have this antagonist growing through hockey's mechanic, even though I don't think it's hockey grows, but just, like, it's that same idea of, like, pushing yourself so that you can grow stronger. And so, just this chapter made that fight completely unrelated a little bit better for me. And yeah, of course, as you mentioned, there's the gag where it's like, hockey blooms in danger, and then they get punched and knocked into a wall, like, all comic and goofy, and it's like, well, it doesn't bloom every time, but it does bloom some of the time. And it's just the comic timing of it is very funny. And speaking of comic timing, you also get one of the probably the most, it's so funny when, like, Luffy pulls Hyokura out and he's like, I've taught you all I know about Ryuo, to call out your hockey, do it unconsciously, and then, like, he like dies, and Luffy's like, Gramps, and then Big Mom attacks him, and he just dives out of the way. He's perfectly fine, like, just, yeah. It's so funny. Like, I actually watched the scene in the anime because I was curious, and they even add, like, there's, like, like, when Luffy's, like, calling out, like, he's like, no, and then it, like, pans out, and he's, like, holding the body, and there's, like, a spotlight that comes down on them as it, like, focuses on this death. So, and then, no, he's perfectly fine. It's funny. So anyway, Big Mom goes on a tantrum through the prison, and yeah, she gets a second, Shiroko pot. Nope, empty. And then Queen bonks her on the head. And she gets her memory back. But so on that note, I was gonna ask, so yeah, what do you think? Because yeah, as you mentioned, it was certainly a point of discourse. I'm pretty sure people were generally not happy about it. What did you think about Big Mom's amnesia arc?
Yeah, like, I'm not really sure because like, obviously the way, I guess, Oda had this arc laid out, I guess it's kind of like, how does Big Mom get to the prison and, cause all this commotion, but not destroy the Straw Hats? I don't know. I guess it's like, on the one hand, I see what Oda did with it and how it worked into the story, and so I can kind of just shrug it off. But I think maybe there is a little something, like, there's a little part of it that's a little unsatisfying, that, like,
yeah, there's definitely like, some hand waviness towards it, like, especially with her hat, because Napoleon's with her the whole time, and as, like, when she draws him out against Kaido,
and yeah, he's shy.
Like, oh, I was shy, like, like, yeah, because it would have, yeah, so I understand, like I said, yeah, there's definitely some hand waviness towards it. One thing I definitely get out of it in a character way that I think helps me with it, because, yeah, it's a little convenient for the Straw Hats in some ways, even though it also, like, creates a lot of problems for them, right? Like, especially for Luffy during this sequence where he's fighting Big Mom and he's, like, trying not to die. But I think one thing that helps me is, like, because I'm thinking about, like, going back to Big Mom's flashback where we see her as a child, and she is legitimately this, like, good-natured girl who just grew up with a Caramel who did not have her best intentions in mind, coddled her, and just sort of gave her everything she wanted, and leading her to be this stunted, spoiled child. Like, here we see kind of, like, a redo, in a sense, where she returns to that sort of, like, childish innocence, and we see, like, okay, yeah, Big Mom could have been a better person, right?
Yeah, I guess that's interesting. I didn't think about it from that way.
Like,
but it makes sense.
That's what I get out of it, where it's just like, because, I mean, she's not specifically, like, scolded a lot, like Chopper doesn't, like, but she's shown kindness, and we see that, yeah, she's still, like, that's a part of her, even if, like, now it's buried under her being this evil hag for 70 years.
I wish I could think of more examples of things like this, but I know One Piece has kind of had moments where, like, especially when it's, like, the beginning of the arc, kind of things like this happening, where it's just, like, I might not like what's happening in the moment, but ultimately it, like, wraps back around into something good. So I think that's kind of, when it's, I see something like that, like, Big Mom has memory loss. It's like, yeah, okay, maybe not I mean, I'm not fucking Oda. I'm not gonna be like, I could write this better. But, it's like, maybe not what I was wanting or what I was looking for, but knowing that, like, it's gonna get worked into something, and it's gonna be a reason that happened. And yeah, like, I don't know. It's not the first time One Piece, because sometimes even with One Piece, I think playing the long game with an arc, it can be like, no, I want this fight now, or I want this thing to happen now. But it's like, having to kind of wait for it. I don't know. It's like I could see why people had it. I could understand people having a problem with it. But, like, I guess personally, I guess that's just kind of where I'm at with how I engage with stories these days. It's like, if there are little details or ways that things play out that maybe don't connect with me in the same way, it's ultimately, I feel like I try to look more for what it's in service to, and if there's something else that I can enjoy out of it, then I'll be a lot more, I guess, forgiving on just details like that.
Yeah, and I think another part of it is, like, because, again, especially what I saw, because people might not, I'm not saying people are suddenly happy with this now, but it's more like, I mostly saw this during the weekly reading, and I think the issue with weekly reading is, like, when you get one chapter every week, sometimes it's your only chapter for even 2 weeks, because One Piece will go on break a lot. So it kind of say like, okay, Big Mom doesn't have her memories, unfortunate. Well, now you have to deal with this every on and off for, like, a couple months, right? And then so sometimes, like, this is the chapter and it's having this element that's unsatisfying to you, and so you're going to be, your feelings are going to be more unhappy about that, where in your case, where you're sort of, like, apprehensive a little bit towards it, but, like, it's also, like, it's literally, like, maybe an hour of reading that you have to deal with it, right? So it's, like, the scale, and then you have other things that to...
I guess I could kind of compare it to, like the Hunter x Hunter Succession War arc, which I'm, like, current on now. So, like, and I was even able to read the last 10 chapters coming out weekly. So, like, I kind of maybe had an experience of, like, why is Togashi introducing so many more characters? I want to see, Kurapika or the Phantom Troop or yada, yada, yada. But it's like, yeah, clearly he's got some sort of vision with all these characters. And so if I don't really have much to take away from it in the moment, I'm willing to, like, is suspend judgment the word I'm looking for? Because it's like, there's not much I have to say about it in the moment, but, like, I will assume, and, like, especially if the author has enough, like, good faith earned from me, I'm willing to kind of, like, let it play out and see where it goes. The other example I would have brought up was Ayakashi Triangle. Again, is it really going to come up every episode? Should I just make that a running bit?
Can we have... Mathwiz tries not to mention her other 10 out of 10 favorite manga every episode of One Piece. Challenge. Failed. Keep going.
But yeah, like, there's a current arc going on right now where I'm like, I have ideas in my head of where it could go and, like, what I would like to see, but I'm just waiting on the weekly chapter, and I'm like, please, just give it to me now. So, I hope that wasn't too much of a tangent, but I hope it got my point across.
I'm gonna keep going because basically I just want for me with Big Mom's amnesia is it's not my favorite trope. It's not my favorite writing decision of Oda, even in this reading, let alone this arc. But I still got there's funny moments, there's good character actions, there's interesting developments that happen for it. Just like what I was talking about earlier, I hadn't pieced that together before, where it's a literal flip of how it normally Luffy and Big Mom are, where Luffy's sharing the food and Big Mom's the glutton who eats everything, but it's no, Big Mom is now, she's the Luffy fighting against Big Mom when she's going after Luffy. That's funny, right? And that's something that you couldn't get otherwise because of just how Big Mom is. So, and I got character stuff out of it. So, even, again, like I said, it's not my favorite writing decision, but I'm ultimately not too unhappy where it went and what happened, what I got out of it, right? So that's
I think maybe details like this can if it went in a direction that I if it didn't pay off in interesting ways, maybe I would have then felt oh, this doesn't feel earned, or it didn't hit me the same way. Because I've definitely had experiences like that with other media, but for the most part, I feel Oda has kind of earned my trust at this point, that if he's going to introduce something and it's I don't know where this is going, I'm going to just wait and see.
Just write it out.
We'll
see. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so Big Mom has memories back, and she's to be oh, hey, you're Queen from Kaido's crew. And he's
oh, and Queen is immediately oh, shit. Whatever confidence he had before is just completely gone now, because it's I can't fight her now.
And luckily she passes the fuck out, and he's because I think the funniest part is that Luffy's still a fucking menace. He's still dangerous, but he's so fucking terrified for Big Mom that he just nope, we're wrapping her up, we're get fucking 100% pure sea stone prison cuffs and chains, wrap her 100 times and give her 100 wild animal settings. We need this this woman needs to be fucking locked in.
Looking at the it takes place over 3 pages, how quickly it's nope, we're getting out of here, we're taking her, we're going. I didn't I guess process that in the moment, but it is it really just nope, we gotta go.
Boom. And then then once he's gone and Luffy's just all right, or fuck it, I forget the name, but the warden's oh yeah, he's still free, and it's I've always been free. This place is mine, bitch. So it's just Queen, Big Mom, she was overall a boon for the Straw Hats, but just the way it shaped up was I don't know. I'm still satisfied with it at the end of the day, I think. And you get that line I've always been free, where I sort of talked about it before, where it's Luffy chose to be in chains for the most part and train himself, and he probably could have found a way to escape at any time, especially with Raizo and Caribou helping, but especially as it turned out it was better for Luffy to be here, and so he decided to be here and train, and and
it's also a really good line, just in the immediate sense of the warden is oh shit, he's free, and Luffy's just kind of what are you talking about, you never had me.
Yes.
This was always going to go down like this.
And I was now that you're bringing that up, I was just thinking about how this is kind of even structured like a normal One Piece arc in a sense, where it's you get the other Straw Hats doing stuff, and now we get Luffy's climax sort of as the climax of Act 2 in a sense. There's still more stuff that comes after for sure, but just we got Zoro doing some stuff, we got Sans, Stealth Black doing some stuff. We got a little less from the other Straw Hats, but then now it's Luffy's time, and he's here, he's free, and he's gonna kick some ass. But yeah, then we get sort of we also get the conflict with the people of Wano who have had their spirit broken, where Luffy fighting against Kaido is going to this is honestly just One Piece in general in a sense, because peace and order versus chaos and conflict has sort of been that's the Marines versus pirates right there, and Luffy being ultimately on the side of pirates and chaos, he's going to cause trouble to a lot of people as he causes makes fighting and overthrows these tyrants, and there's going to be instability and disorder, but these people are they're fighting Luffy because they think that their peace and stability of being prisoners will be better than the wrath they'll suffer at Kaido's hands. It leads to sort of I don't know, it's just like there's no freedom to be found in this country anymore, and just like, I don't know, the sadness there as like these people who, you know, they should be Luffy's allies, but they're ultimately fighting him. And it's
I felt like there were a lot of like layers to unpack with that, like, you know, defeat, and how, like, you know, Luffy was able to do all these incredible things and show off all this strength, and it's like, yeah, you know, we were happy when you were beating them up, but at the end of the day, it's like, you know, we have no freedom, you're not going to help us. This is they still think that siding with Luffy is a net loss, even though he did all of that.
Right, like, even though
he still has to do more.
Well, I think, actually, you just gave me a thought, because, like, we've talked about how Luffy's kind of a monster, and he's also just kind of exceptional in all ways. Like, as I think, you know, he's, like the capabilities Luffy exhibits, like, they aren't unseen in other characters. Like, you know, he has the power, the most dangerous power in the world, as Mihawk says, where other people follow behind him. But we see that with lots of other characters, like on the cover stories, especially, where, you know, like, Buggy has a bunch of allies now. Gerasu, the fucking Sky Island dude who got a bunch, you know, he just kept going, and he got a bunch of weird animals companions. You know, Eneru has the army on the moon, you know, so just like, you know, like everything Luffy, like devil fruits and all these other, you know, conquers hockey, like Luffy, even the power to hear the voice of all things, like everything Luffy has is also exhibited in other characters. But, you know, like, what makes Luffy exceptional is that, you know, he's just got his attitude and his will to go forward. But here we see, like, normal people who just, like, yeah, even though Luffy has this power to overcome and fight against oppression and stuff, like, they don't see that in themselves, because they're just so beaten down and hopeless that they can't connect to Luffy, and so they, you know, try to hold him back, because, you know, in a way he's become alien, even though, like, his beginnings were humble and very normal, right? So, I don't know, just a thought that I had. Anyway, then we get introduced to another of the samurai, motherfucking Kawamatsu, Mr. Killed a guy with a fishbone, and the Kappa comes out of the cage, and he's, as the samurai are, he's a strong guy, though he also just fucking throws up like 13 years of poison. He's just like, yeah, I'm cool, but also dies. Then the samurai come out. Luffy's got his squad with the prison break crew, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
So also we get so, you know, I just wonder if you had any thoughts about it, because Kikunojo mentions that is apparently a man but a woman at heart, which, you know,
yeah, I mean, I've heard that turn of phrase before. Like, I think it comes up in like when Yusuke fights the one character in, like, the arc.
Miyuki? Was that the name of that character?
Yeah, Miyuki.
Okay,
yeah.
I actually remembered. Wow.
No, you're right. And I know, like, it is a I'm not sure, like, how much of it is, like, a thing in Japan, or, like, because I know it's come up in a couple other things, you know, the whole, like, you know, man in body, heart of a woman type thing.
Yeah.
Like that, even, like that line in particular.
And even before in One Piece, right, with the Okama, I think, it's sort of been thrown around, I'm pretty sure. Or the idea, yeah, just the idea in general, I think. But,
yeah, so it was kind of just like, you know, it was a little panel, like, oh, okay, this character trans ? Sure, move on, you know. Like, I didn't really... It felt, I guess it, you know, like, it didn't feel super eventful, which I think is fine. And I find it interesting, of course. But, yeah, so was this, like, the I know that there's another character who... is this the more, like, this seems like the more understated one?
This is definitely the understated one, where, like, yeah, that's the thing, is with Kiku, is it's basically just like, yeah, because I read her, she's trans, basically. Well, because, so another point regarding that, because so we the Akazaya 9, basically, the 9 red scabbards. So apparently in the original Japanese, there's something about that term Akazaya that specifically, it's like, a literal translation would be the 9 male red scabbards, basically. So I get, but, you know, as we, you know, see Kiku specifically, even though she was born a man, identifies as a woman. So I just wanted to bring that up in regards to, like, I don't know. So basically, like, if you were a Japanese reader, you would expect all of the samurai to be, men, and here we have it. So the fact that Kiku was introduced and called herself a samurai, you know, and obviously, like, yeah, we knew that from the last reading that she was, you know, she was teleported 20 years into the future and stayed on Wano. But, you know, it's just like, there's just some, you know, I
think it also, like, I would imagine, of course, I don't know what the exact language is, but, you know, like how in the translation, you know, she always refers to herself as, like, you know, this one, blah, 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 blah. Which I imagine is, like, how, like, in Japanese, you can use a lot of, like, genderless language and kind of, like, you know, sort of skirt around that. And so, like, I imagine that way that she speaks is kind of, like, not referring to herself with, like, you know, like, what is the word I'm looking for?
Gendered pronouns? Or...
Yeah. Or, you know, pronoun equivalence. I know that's not exactly how Japanese works, but, you know, like, the self-referential stuff that usually is like, oh, okay, you're this, you know? I imagine that this is kind of a more neutral way of, like, referring to herself, but also, like, you know, keeping it gender neutral.
But yeah, this is the, like you said, the understated character. Well, there's another character we will have to talk about later. And also,
I'm also thinking about it now that, like, you know, it is also entirely possible that, you know, she was using gendered language, and, you know, like, even that can be kind of, like, you know, boku and watashi, and, like, that's a whole thing. And I know I've misrepresented it in a video before, but I at least get the gist of, like, just because someone uses one thing doesn't necessarily mean that,
yeah, I was actually going to bring... It's great that you mentioned that, because I was going to bring that up, because, yeah, generally, like, boku is considered, like, a more passive or less aggressive masculine thing. Ore is considered a more aggressive masculine thing, but as far as One Piece characters go, Big Mom actually refers to herself with Ore. Like, so does Luffy, by the way. So it's not exclusive. Like, even though there's generally, like, a masculine femininity thing to the way you refer to yourself, they're not, like, it's not binary, is what I'm trying to observe there. Because, yeah, Big Mom refers to herself with Ore, even though she's a very feminine, matriarchal character. Like, the fact that she's a woman is incredible. Like, she's the matriarch of her family, right? Like, that's incredible. But she still refers to herself with Ore, even though it's more of a tougher masculine thing, you know? So, like, so that's a good example in that how it's not, like, again, you can't just... Yeah,
it's not necessarily translatable as, like, you know, he, she, they, that sort of thing.
It's translation is more of an art than a science, and, you know, so it's just worth noting. But yeah, generally speaking, as far as I'm concerned, like, yeah, Kiku does not have nearly as much discourse around her as the other character, and I think, you know, part of that is because, yeah, it is relatively understated. Like, Kiku is a woman at heart. And that's it.
Yeah.
That's really it. Like, she's just kind of just another samurai character, and, you know, it's, you know, I mean, aesthetically, like, you know, she looks more like a woman, generally, and, you know, but that's really it, I guess. Like,
yeah, and even, like, was it Toco was calling her, like, Big Sis at one point or something or am I thinking of the other character? Am I thinking of,
You might have been thinking...
No, yeah, I think I'm getting him confused. Okay, Did Otama ever refer to her? I don't know, I'm lost now.
I'd have to go back and look, because I actually never thought to look at... Because, you know, to see how she was being referred to. Because, I mean, like, the only... that said, I do think the only time that she's ever called... Like, it's literally just, like... Yeah, the characters who don't... You know, like Chopper even says, "You're a man," and, like, that's just question mark. And, like, you know, the way the some of the pirates, you know, or no.
I also find it funny that, like, in that same panel, Luffy is, like, ignoring everything and is like, "That mask is scary." So it's like he doesn't care.
Luffy's
like,
good.
What is gender to Luffy?
Right, and then there's also that's the other line where they say that Kikunojo has a reputation as the most handsome swordsman of Wano. Where that's the only other time, but, you know, again, the Akazaya samurai are it is a masculine way to refer to them, so I can understand it. But, you know, clearly that's not exclusively how Kiku identifies himself, or herself rather. So yeah, but you know, that's yeah, I think that's about where the conversation ends there with her.
Yeah, I feel like I was ready to just kind of move on, but I guess that's typical for the Nen Show, that it's like we have to have a talk about gender if it comes up.
It's only a 10-minute conversation on gender this time, not a usual 20 minutes. So we're saving the other like, it's gonna be a half an hour for the other character. Probably not. Maybe not. I hope not. But Oh boy.
But yeah, I guess like the TLDR is like, I think it's cool. It just kind of exists, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's where I appreciate it, where it's just like, because like I think as far as like normalizing things goes, like having trans characters and just having them not be a big deal to their characters and to the other characters is nice and welcome. So here it is. Something.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, fighting breaks out, and Chopper's getting to do things, yay! Instead of being a scared little ninja boy.
Oh god, that one moment where it's like, shows all of the important characters. It's like, oh, it's this person, and like Luffy, and then Chopper's there, and no one comments on Chopper, and he's like, what about me? It's so good.
He's like waiting, like he's got the dots and he's just waiting to be noticed, and nobody notices him. But he's strong too. He's fighting, and then also you have the scorpion guy using the disease, the mummy disease, which of course fitting to plague, Queen the Plague rather.
Yeah.
And which pisses Chopper off because he does not like these I mean he's had this shit with Caesar too of just using poison.
Yeah, it's like the equivalent of when someone throws food on the ground in front of Sanji. It's like, you what?
Right. Don't fuck with that. And God, and the way because Luffy just because they're arguing that this if you guys never showed up, everything here would have been normal, and Luffy he's like, don't touch him, Luffy, and he just fucking he takes the bird and he grabs them all.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you think this is fucking normal? Just like God having a good and because he's sort of just pointing out how because he's able to be free in this prison, and these guys are choosing not to be free, which in itself is a choice. Like they have they're just they have the choice, and he's sort of like, that's this isn't this isn't normal, but it could be, and just I don't know, this is Luffy very much sort of being kind of a leader, which is really good, and just Luffy's so good.
Yeah, love that moment.
Also, I forgot to mention this before because I mentioned last time about sort of Kaido and his crew sort of pushing people into being animals, and just the way that I think someone on my server, I want to say Murasaki, mentioned conditioning, where it's with animals, carrot and stick approach, right? Which is even specifically referenced in horses. You give them the food, so they do what you want, and if they don't do what you want, you beat them, right? And so here you have the spirits of these humans broken down by Kaido's crew as they're controlling them like animals. They're literally just giving them food for doing what they want. So it's just and now Luffy's rejecting that, where it's he wants to make Wano a place where you can eat, and so you're full, and we're here to fight Kaido and win. It's like, let's go. And and then he's starting to break through their hearts, and the warden tries to attack, and Luffy's like, I saw a pretty bad future right now.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Babanuki. I remembered his name. And then I like how it ends, where he's like, you get the rest. The way because we saw this with the revolutionaries back at the very beginning of Wano.
Yeah.
Before we got there, where, they can't just let other people solve their problems, and Luffy's kind of been the problem solver. They need to fight for themselves too. And so, it's they took down Babanuki, and so it's the prisoners they found their hopes again through Luffy, and they're gonna fight their own oppressors. It's let's go. God, it's so good. I love the Udon sequence. And then we get another little bit that I think is good, where it cuts to Kid, and it turns out Luffy asked, we see Luffy after that conflict asking if Kid wants, do you want to join in with me? Let's go after Kaido. And then it's sort of we see, Kid, he's had his own trusts and hopes broken by, being betrayed by his own alliance that he tried to form, and Kaido's spirit being broken. So he's going off to do his own thing and get his crew, the people he can trust again. So Luffy's kind of, I feel like Luffy's spurring him into action a little bit there, maybe. God,
I like the part where like Otama and Momonosuke come in, and they're like, "Oh, Luffy, glad to see you're all right." And Momonosuke's like, "No, he's literally dying."
"You're sorry, it hurts. Help me." Which is like, because I like, and Chopper's, try and help. I also like this just as like, because, Luffy, has in the past struggled to rely on people, but I think, part of the reason he was able to like take on the burden of the sickness and risk himself like that is because he knew Chopper was there. He knew Chopper was there to help him because this is Chopper's thing. And so, like, yeah, he's literally dying, and Chopper's, oh god, yeah, it's just a little character moment for Luffy, and then also, then you get the interaction where like Momonosuke's like, "I could never do that," and Luffy's like, "Yeah, because you're a stupid, weak, cowardly chicken and helpless." And like, shit, like Luffy's talking some bad shit for someone who's literally like on death's door. But then you get a moment where they see Momonosuke and that all the prisoners bow because they're the heir of the Kozuki clan is alive, the rightful daimyo of Wano, the shogun of Wano rather. And I also think another thing is because like there's the line, "What we were missing was a dream, something that lies beyond the battle," and I thought that was interesting because like I've talked about this in, I think it was the Fishman Island video. That's also Mr. Morris talks about it in his video on the sun symbolism. Which what I get out of the sun symbolism is that like the sun is a new day, and like you have the Nox pirates, Pedro, who they're the moment right before the sunlight, and the Straw Hats are going to bring a new day to the world by defeating the world government. But what we see with this line of beyond, like something that lies beyond the battle is, the Straw Hats are going to bring a new day to Wano, but they're not there to, like, they're going to leave, right? Like they can't, like, even if a new day comes, like if after the conflict, like what's left after that? And so Momonosuke is able to give a hope in that way that the Straw Hats can't, because if the Straw Hats will bring the dawn, the new day, Momonosuke is going to be there where the Straw Hats aren't on the following day. So, someone to defend Wano after it's gone, basically. Just, I don't know, little bit that factors into the whole story, I think. But then, of course, there's also Momonosuke sort of feeling the burden about how, like, they're not looking at me, they're looking at my father, who is actually amazing, so it's like, that's, little character stuff for Momo to consider. Oh, yes, so you're right, we do get the Tsunachi cry, where Ashura Doji takes them, Kinemon and others, to the graves of the people who've died waiting for Wano to be saved, and the cry of surrender your name and be as a child.
That must have been a fun one to translate.
Right? Especially, because I think earlier translations, I don't remember if they were official or not, translated as snatch, because they were trying to, like, turn it into like an English word, and because I guess the way it was written, that maybe, but no, that they have gone, that the Tsunachi was what it is now, luckily. So, but yeah, apparently this cry was known to people on Zoro's home island. So, but yeah, so after reminding Kinemon of what they've lost and the burdens that they have to bear going forward, Ashura Doji joins up with their alliance. And he's like, "Yeah, you might be the same age, but we're 20 years stronger." And I was prowling up with Rashi, the old crew, the old group. We get a look at Zoro, and then we get something you were bringing up before, where it's like, what the fuck's going up with the law? He's captured. Hawkins is trying to get info out of him. There's some Wano-specific wanted posters going out. Law gave him.
Oh yeah, and then I like.
Oh yeah, go on.
There's like the sentiment, kind of what I was talking about earlier of like, the people who are, working under the Shogun, but are kind of like not buying into, they're kind of like undercutting him. That like, it's like we threw all these people in prison because they were gonna do a rebellion, but it was a mistake. So why haven't we let them go? And then it's like, you think, Orochi's gonna admit he made a mistake?
Yeah,
and that's
more, discontentment with the current rule. Then we get Law turned himself in, so in exchange for Beppo and everybody, we get the gag with the wanted posters where Usopp and Robin.
That's so good. I love how that came back.
The face and they're being haunted by a ghost. Oh man.
It's literally them, but it's like they're doing the face and they're unrecognizable. It's like, all right, you pass. It's so good.
Got a bunch of broken ships for Franky to fix. his favorite.
Let's go. Although I guess that also kind of made me realize that, like, you know, a lot of times Oda never does a joke just once. And I think that's probably why a lot of the comedy works so well, is that, like, it always finds a way back in some form, like, recontextualized. And, yeah, it's probably why the comedy in One Piece is so fucking great.
God. There's some stuff yet to come in Wano that I'm really excited to talk about. And funnily enough, it has to do with the comedy in One Piece, but it's not just, it's like it's in a big way, in a big way, but anyway, so yeah, now we get to back to Onigashima, where this reminds me of the Impel Down bit, where of course Luffy wasn't being fed by the people who were imprisoning him, but just bringing constant bunch of food to Luffy when he was, you know, in the prison. Just, I don't know, I just had a flash memory where now you get Big Mom, who is being fed by Kaido's crew. She also drops a little interesting note where, because she's trying to collect all the races of the world, and she mentions King specifically as being one of the races that she doesn't have. Which is curious. Then Kaido comes in, and take off the fucking handcuffs. Let's fucking go. And they fucking go, and the sky gets split, and it's intense.
Yeah, I guess this arc in particular, you know, like, One Piece has always kind of done the thing of, like, cutting around to different people in different places, but, like, this one in particular has a lot of, like, you know, cutting the fight short and then just kind of moving the story along, which I think is interesting. There it is again.
Yeah, interesting. Your favorite? No,
it's definitely like, I think it's, unless I'm misremembering One Piece, because it has been years, but it feels like in a way unique to this arc.
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely think it's been doing the cutting around for a while, but like, it's definitely, there's just so many threads to follow that it's, you know, I think it's kind of inevitable at some point, but like, it's a lot for sure. But yeah, and just like also the page of like, because we haven't seen the sky split like that since fucking when Shanks and Whitebeard did it. So here's like the other two emperors from that time period, at that time period, doing the same thing. It's like,
yeah, that's like, another detail I would have forgotten about, but that's a good catch.
Yeah, and also like just the way everyone evacuate, get off the island now, like, because yeah, these guys can 100% destroy this fucking island. Yeah.
And I like how that kind of ties in with Queen, where it's just like he's looking for any reason to leave, but trying to make it look like, oh, he's taking care of business.
He just wants to get the fuck out of here because he's already gotten his ass beat by Big Mom, so let's not repeat that. But yeah, so you call it, yeah, of course, Udon. Everything's fine at the Udon prison. Everything's fine. How are you?
And it turns out Otama is back with her ability.
Yes, she's powerful.
So good.
And yeah, Caribou's just kind of like, he's part of the gang? ? Like, I don't know, just the way he's like chilling there is just like, I don't know, the way Oda uses recurring minor characters and just having Caribou be, I don't know, god damn it. I also like the exchange where it's like, the guys are like, Chopper Ramon, we're in your debt. We owe you our lives. And he's like, I don't want your debts. They're too heavy. Like, he's just a little boy. He can't, the weight of a life is, you know, he's a doctor. He cares about lives too. So it's a little much for him. Anyway, then we get introduced to the Yakuza, who are Hyogiro's subordinates. And Luffy, like, makes one joke about, he just calls him old Grams. And they're like, okay, how much do you want to be cut, motherfucker? Like, they're gonna kill Luffy. I don't know, it's funny. So yeah, the plan's all coming together. Asho Doji has the layout of the mansion. They still need weapons, which of course that gets resolved with Zoro fighting Gyukimaru, who has a connection to Kawamatsu. So yeah, that was just another like instance of just Oda like tying things together and using like, I don't know, and I definitely think again there's more folklore myth references going on here, because like I mentioned the crane one, but I think the fox is another reference to his story that I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Because yeah, we get the flashback where it's like you know, Kawamatsu, the fox was a guardian of the graves, which are, you know, the samurai's weapons, and Kawamatsu wanted the weapons and was able to win over the fox. And just, I don't know, just a good little flashback for such a minor character that is able to, like, you know, help out the the war effort. Because I guess like minor point, but I just have noticed that like One Piece brings up weapons a lot, but it's kind of interesting because for the main characters, their weapons are so like important that it like almost it like for Zoro, his swords, he gets swapped around a bit, but like most of the characters don't need or like weapons as much, but like obviously the minor characters do. Like because I remember back in Alabasta, there was a whole point that Crocodile basically delivered a bunch of weapons to the rebels so that they could use those weapons to fight against the emperor. And then it's come up a lot, like come up quite a bit, like especially here in Wano, for example. So I don't know, just a recurring point, I guess. Like, oh yeah, and I think Joker was specifically dealt in arms dealing, so Doflamingo. So yeah.
Now I'm just having like a flashback to like when Zoro first fought Mihawk and how like even though Mihawk cut through him, the like one sword that Zoro had that was like from I don't remember her name,
Kuina.
But how like that one, Kuina, and how that one was unbroken. It's like so good.
Yeah. Did you have any thoughts on the Fox flashback with Gyukimaru / Onimaru or
I mean, yeah, it was cool and interesting.
I just fucking realized. So I think Gyuki, or I know Gyu means cow, so I think Gyuki can maybe mean bull, perhaps, or at least just having Gyu, like because there's Ryo Kugyu, who's green bull. So it's Oni is also the reason because like there was the whole Zodiac thing with Fujitora and Ryo Kugyu. Wouldn't be the Nen Show if I wasn't fucking stumbling over names. But yeah, but because basically the reason that those two animals have connection to Oni is because Oni have horns and they also wear like tiger print like loincloths and stuff. So I just sort of realized that, oh yeah, like Gyukimaru is like connected to a bull, and then the actual fox's name is Onimaru, which is also sort of less directly connected to a bull. So the names are there basically. So yeah. Anyway, so it turns out that Odin's swords, Ame no Habakiri and Enma, so are were given to his children, and Hiori wants to give Zoro Enma, but it is Nasty Blade. Oh yeah, and then we see Law escapes from Hawkins.
But this scene, what the fuck?
He was let out by a mysterious person. What is it? Yeah. So I'm pretty sure I know who this is, but I will not say because obviously you're not supposed to yet. Haha. But yeah, Hawkins. So I think I brought it up last time, but how like he looked at the cards and it's like chances of victory against Kaido 0%. And like because the way he says I did not have any other choice, and I guess that's sort of interesting in regards to the freedom thing because like obviously. Even if the cards said Luffy had a 0% chance, he'd still probably fight anyway, right? And, that's how he makes the miracles happen. Even though, yeah, he'll lose just as much for sure. But, Hawkins just has a completely different mindset. And here he is having gotten his ass beat by Law, so, and, having, been broken by Kaido. So, yeah, he's not going to become Pirate King. So, yeah, there he is. And then we get some more training where Luffy's working on his haki, and like he keeps breaking steel, and it's like, nope, that wasn't good enough. And they're like, how does that not good enough? You're punching through steel blocks. Oh yeah, then there's the revision to the with the extra lines on the note that everyone realizes is way to they're going to a different port instead of so Yasui was able to put their plans on a better track. Then of course, while the Straw Hats are getting allies, Kaido, Scratchman Apu is coming in. We have the numbers, the Oni looking dudes who are just I really like that page where we got their silhouettes kinda, and they're just so ominous, and I don't know. God, good page.
Yeah, they're also just fucking gigantic.
They're huge. And then turns out Kaido and Big Mom they went from a deathmatch to being friends, and they're forming a pirate alliance. We'll fight to the death after we take over the world, and it's like, oh fuck. So shit just got shit's been going well, but then nope, difficulty spike. They're on nightmare mode now.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I like the because we get Hiori, or all the retainers remember Hiori, and they're all super happy that she's alive. And I like how Momonosuke is fondly remembering his sister, and the flashback panel of him remembering his sister is she's kicking him in the fucking face, drop kicking him, and because they even mentioned that she's kind of tomboyish, and she's just big bro, flying kick, and he's just I get to see my sister again. And also I just sorry, go on.
Well, I was also just thinking how Zoro follows up with that, and then Momonosuke is oh yeah, a kick from someone 18 years older would hurt.
That's just funny, because I even just envisioned that as I was oh god, if she did that now, she's 3 times his size, so it's just boom, fucking, and he's I don't know, he's Momonosuke is, I don't know, he's just yeah, that'll be rough, I'll have to deal with that, and I don't know, good. But yeah, now we find out about Enma's whole deal, where it's another kind of cursed blade, and just cut down that tree, Zoro, boom, there goes the whole fucking cliff.
Oh my god, it was so cool.
The sword's fucking eating his fucking, his arm is, his gains! So just, yeah, interesting. And of course Zoro's it's, it also becomes his training as he's trying to deal with the sword that's trying to eat his haki and use it properly.
Yeah, and just the expression on his face there as he's looking at the blade, it's god. What a man. Yes.
So yeah, they're talking about their arms and their weapons and their men, and they're recruiting, they're gathering people. They want the people from the prison, but Kinemon and Luffy part ways, ready to unite as the countdown for the raid keeps going.
And there's the law again.
Oh yeah, there's graves for Pedro and Yasue. Oh yeah, we get a little drop that Enma was created by the same blacksmith who created the Wado Ichimonji, which is the sword Zoro got from Kuina. Well, so they also mentioned that he broke the laws and left this land over 50 years ago. So again, if there was, so it seems yeah, I think it's basically a given at this point. But yeah, 50 years ago there was a bunch of people who left Wano. And went to the East Blue, it looks like. So thus, Zoro's connection, the old men on his at his village, the blacksmith and Windmill Village. So yeah, just a little tidbit. I think it's not a major thing, but I do think it comes up a little bit later still. But yeah, unfortunately, Orochi knows where the port that they're going to gather is. Yeah, like you said, Law is still moving, and Act 2 is over. We're getting into the final act. I'm so excited to talk about Act 3. God, even
I
just
did the thing again where I turned the page and it's the fishman.
Oh yes, yeah. Oh man. Okay, yeah. We're starting off strong. So yeah, because we recorded last week, but I don't think we record next week because it's just going to be a longer reading. But I am so hyped to talk about Act 3 because there's so much good shit that happens, and getting all that build up, and yeah.
I'm assuming that this is the stuff that you made your video on a while back.
The flash. So it's not that I made my video on it. It's that I'll talk about it next time, but it's actually that I literally put out my video right before this chapter came out, and the chapter happened to feed into the ideas that I was I felt so fucking giga-brained because I literally just made a video, and then the story come and adds to those ideas that I was just talking about. And then of course then we get the flashback, which I also made a video on. But we'll talk about that later because yeah. So we're only over 3 hours, so we're back. The Nen Show is back, baby. So yeah, I'm very excited to talk about the rest of Wano. And any closing thoughts or feelings?
I mean, I'm still enjoying it, and I'm still interested to see where. I feel like I'm getting more into it now as we get back in the swing of things.
For sure. Yeah, I'm. Yeah, no, that's right. After the last recording, I fucking I got on a big One Piece kick where I edited the episode and I listened to the Wano openings, which you can actually watch the first Mathwiz. You can watch opening 22 now because it does go through Act 2. I just but you can watch the next two after the next reading. But yeah, I like was flipping through later volumes and getting fucking emotional and teary eyed and shit. And I'm like, One Piece, I'm back. I don't know, because like that's the thing about One Piece specific. I mean, I think it happens with favorites in general, where it's like you spend a lot of time away from them and you start your feelings lower, right? Like you can't be 100% all the time, right? And now that I'm rereading One Piece again, I'm just back. You know, it's feeling like my favorite story ever again, and it's so good. And love the Nen Show. Love rereading Wano, and it's been fun. And I can't wait to do. We're halfway through the reading, recording wise. So yeah, we're not.
Let's go.
We're not halfway. We're not. I don't even think we're over a third of the way, chapter wise. I think, but not. Yeah. So all right. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.